On this episode of the DTVC podcast, we've got Chris the Brain Kacvinsky from Bulletproof Action on, and we're going to be looking at Cold Harvest, the Isaac Florentine, Gary Daniels, Bryan Genesse classic. And then next week, we start the month of July off with Scott Murphy from All 90s Action All the Time on. We're going to be continuing our journey through Steven Seagal's DTV oeuvre with Into the Sun. I remember that one there, classic there with all kinds of names. Well, actually not any names other than I think Eddie George is in it from a former Tennessee Titans standout there. But yeah, stay tuned for that for next week. We'll be more Seagal coming next week. And then 2 weeks, Ty from Quibitz is on for his monthly spot. We're going to be looking at two from Aaron Eckhart. We're not sure if we're going to call it Aaron Eckhart on the skids or just an Aaron Eckhart double feature because we don't know if he was big enough to now be on the skids. So we're kind of figuring that out, but keep an eye out for that. That'll be in 2 weeks' time. Then DTVC Extra, that's going to be on hold for a little bit. I don't really have any plans for another DTVC Extra episode, but if you're subscribed to the podcast, you'll see when sometimes they come up, just when the spirit hits me, right, and I just decide to do one. So that may happen. I mean, again, the Taken movies are on Tubi, so that is a possibility there. The other thing, though, too, is I've got a huge backlog of screeners that I've got to do, so I probably should be getting caught up on those before I get too crazy with another DTVC Extra. But, at least for right now, it'll be on hold, but we'll see what happens in the near future. Yeah, and then in terms of the YouTube channel, last week we posted the party scene from Recoil. That was a request from Ty from Comeuppance. So that was a really fun one to do. That's on our YouTube channel right now. For this week, maybe kind of getting a little bit into how the sausage is made here with the site, but my computer that I use, it's not the fastest. It's got about like a 2.6 gigahertz processor and 16 megabytes of RAM. 16 gigabytes of RAM. God, when was the last time my computer had 16 megabytes of RAM? I can't even remember. But anyway, but either way, 16 gigabytes, even that nowadays isn't a lot. But what I'm trying to get to is when I use OBS to do these videos, and it does take up memory, especially because I use a virtual green screen as well. And with the heat right now, we're going through a heat wave here in the U.S., especially in the Northeast where I live. It is currently 100 degrees Fahrenheit for you Celsius people, the rest of the world who aren't the United States, who moved into the 21st or the 20th century, right? And moved from Fahrenheit to Celsius. It's 40 degrees Celsius, just to give you a sense. So it's really hot, and it overheats my computer really quickly. And I was running into issues with it last week when it was starting to get a little bit warmer. So I was trying to kind of play with the outputs a little bit, so that because the video is coming out choppy and things like that. So all that to say, I'm going to try for maybe a short video this week, just because of the constraints that we have with the weather here. The office that I do a lot of this recording in, it's not air conditioned. I've got to find some way to mitigate that somehow. But in terms of a short one, I was thinking Strike Commando, the end fight scene between Reb Brown and Jakota. That's a good one. It's like maybe like 3 or 4 minutes long. Also, it doesn't require a lot of commentary on my end. There's some stuff where it's just like there's really not much I can say beyond what you're seeing on the screen. So that should be a fun one. That's the one we're going to plan on. I'm not sure if that's going to be Thursday or Friday, but look for that. Again, if you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, you should be. Get on there, subscribe. That way you'll know when the latest video comes up. And I try to put it on socials as well, but definitely keep an eye out for that. And then in terms of the site, Save Me is the next one listed on the Letterboxd channel. So unless something changes between now and then, that's probably the one we'll do. I did watch Black Creek, the new Cynthia Rothrock movie. Again, more of how the sausage is made, or behind the scenes information. My cable company gave me a promo code for Fandango at home. So essentially I was able to rent it for free. But I did rent it. I did watch it. Spoiler alert, I did enjoy it. So here's the thing is that I'm going to be going on John Cross's After Movie Diner podcast to discuss that movie. So I'm not sure if I'll put the episode out, do the review on my site now or wait until that we record that episode, it goes up, and then usually my reviews kind of harken back to the recording. So that it's possible though that Black Creek might be my one this weekend. So we'll see. Part of the reason why I might do it this weekend, other than the fact that I've already got the images and everything ready to go for it. John actually did a written review on the After Movie Diner site. So just kind of putting a plug on that as well. If you go to his site, you can check out. Actually, if you go to the IMDb page, his is at the very top because it's After Movie Diner. You can go right to his review. Also, Chris the Brain Kacvinsky, who's reviews on tonight's episode. He also, I believe it was him. I know Bulletproof reviewed it, but I think it was him that did the review. So they've both done Black Creek. So, Black Creek is one of those ones. Cynthia Rothrock, she put, it sounds like, if you listen to the PM podcast that I was on recently, where we talked about Guardian Angel, she's put a lot of work into that movie. It is a little on the long side. It's an hour and 56 minutes long, but it is the kind of thing that I feel like good in supporting. It's got her, got Don the Dragon, Richard Norton in one of his last roles, so it's a little bittersweet seeing him on the screen there, but also, he turns in a really great performance. So definitely worth checking out, I would say, for sure. And you can go check out their reviews. And like I said, I think that might be the one that we do this weekend, but if not, it'll be Save Me, which is a Harry Hamlin erotic thriller that John and I did on a previous podcast. And part of the reason why normally I don't always do every movie that we do on the podcast. I don't always review all of them on the site, but one reason why I liked Save Me was that I think it's I'm trying to think who's involved with it. I want to say, was it Cole S. McKay and Jesse V. Johnson? I think we're both involved with that movie. It's really yeah. Cole S. McKay, I think, was like stunt coordinator, did stunt work, and then Jesse V. Johnson was I don't know if he was like set designer or something like that as well. So two Hall of Famers. Well, Cole McKay will be a Hall of Famer later coming up, but interesting enough that we have two Hall of Famers. Also, Steve Railsback is in that, and I'm kind of been looking to try to get into some Railsback. So it kind of be fun to get him on the site. It's gonna be his first time. I mean, we've been doing this site for I don't know how long. And I don't think I've done a Steve Railsback movie. So Save Me doesn't always fit exactly. I mean, I am trying to get more erotic thrillers on the site as well. So, that might be a reason enough for me to get that one up. But, that one can also wait till next week as well. And we'll get Black Creek up as soon as possible, too. And also, keep an eye out because you're going to start seeing some screeners coming fast and furious as well. Those will be usually on Tuesdays that I'll put those up. So keep an eye out for those, too. I think that's everything. Again, talking about me being on other people's sites. Again, PM podcast, I was on to talk about Guardian Angel, so check that out. A fantastic interview that he does with Cynthia Rothrock as well. So, and also he interviews the director of the film, Richard Munchkin, and Rick Pepin, who does cinematography. He's the P, right, in PM. They both had some really great stories as well about Guardian Angel, so check that out too. But I think that is everything. So we'll have John Cross from After Move Down there play in our theme song. I'm sorry, not from After Move Down. Miscellaneous Plumbing Fixture. That's his musical outlet. That he did our theme song. And then, when we come back, Chris the Brain Kacvinsky from Bulletproof Action is on. And we're going to be talking about Cold Harvest. DTVC podcast. As always, this is Matt here, and I'm joined once again by Chris the Brain Kacvinsky from Bulletproof Action. Welcome back, Chris.
Oh, if things work out, I think I'll stay a while.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And did you like the gypsy voice coming in to tell us we're recording?
Oh, yeah, that was very professional type situation over here at the DTVC podcast. Not like the Bulletproof podcast. That's just run and gun. We just do things by the seat of our pants over there. But you've got a quality A1 operation, sir.
Yes, I've got the lady here who's telling us that we're recording. Exactly. Yes. Now speaking of I should say first off that this episode we're going to be talking about 1999's Cold Harvest, Isaac Florentine film with Gary Daniels and Bryan Genesse. We'll be getting to that in a second. But I wanted to go back because talking about your podcast. One recent episode that you guys did was The Big Boss.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, Hong Kong classic, which one of the things I should point out is that you actually explained why that movie has so many different titles, because when I was reviewing it for my site, I did like a special like wild card week on Hong Kong movies way back in like the late 2000s. And I was like, I don't know why this movie has all these different titles, but you explained it, right? It's called The Chinese Connection because it was supposed to be another movie that actually would have made sense as The Chinese Connection, or no, another movie.
Yeah, that one would have made sense because obviously The French Connection was a drug narcotics thing, and they're shipping dope and ice, and that would have made sense. But they switched the canisters, or so they say, or maybe the American people just didn't give a rat's ass and said, we're going to slap whatever title we want on this thing. But then they were like, wait a minute, didn't we already release that movie? No, this is a different movie. Well, what was that one supposed to be called? Oh, that was supposed to be Chinese Connection. Oh, just call that one Chinese Connection, even though it has jack shit to do with drugs.
Right. It's kind of this Wild West thing, right, with these movies where, and I guess it's still this Wild West thing, right? Because I mean, how many times do we talk about movies that, these movies that were made in Italy or something that have 5 titles, or even these direct-to-video movies that we talk about nowadays that have 3 or 4 different titles. So I guess it's still kind of the Wild West, but yeah, it's just this funny idea. There was just almost like this sense of the grindhouse theaters don't care as long as you just give them a movie. It doesn't matter what it's called. And now we are forced to sort of unpack all of this now with the world of Blu-rays and box sets and things like that, where it's like, is this one the right title or is that one the right title? You almost have to have not a PhD, but maybe more like a sort of like a night course certificate, I guess, to be able to untangle.
Yes, I was gonna say, if there's no way I would get a PhD, but a night course certificate at the Learning Annex, right. I could get 3 or 4 of those easy.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Now, one of the things that Chris the Toyman brought up on that episode was that
that bald bastard, yeah.
So who still needs, if he's listening, you still need to get us those Dudikoff the Canon action figure set. We're still. Yeah,
right. We don't have camp, but we are getting, not from Chris in the Figures Toy Company, but there is a Jean-Claude Van Damme kickboxer figure and a Rambo coming out from Big Rubber Guys, which is like Matt Cardona, indie wrestler, former WWE wrestler who started his own figure line. So, yeah.
Okay, so I'm excited that that's actually a real thing because I saw the pictures on Facebook. I thought it was an AI thing.
No, it's real. It's real. At least I hope it is because they got my money. So it's real.
That's exciting. Okay, so we at least have those. Excellent. So
right.
Yeah. So hopefully, if Figures Toy finds out how successful these ones are,
yeah.
Like, so I guess
you could have been on the ground floor of it, but no, you just kept ignoring my requests.
Exactly. I mean, there's 2. I guess there's a couple that they absolutely have to do. I think one of them we talked about was Paul Kersey's daughter on the railing, right? we need that action figure.
Right.
Yes. And we need a Blind Beggar's Bar play set with, the Jackson with the sleeves ripped off and all of that.
Right. I mean, that's the other thing. Figures Toy Company could just go the route of just woman impaled on fence. And you don't have to say that it's from Death Wish 2. Yeah. We can pretend that it is, though.
Right. Because, that kind of thing happens a lot. I'm trying to think, is that how, was it Tony Todd? Was that how he died in The Rock? Did he fall on a fence? I'm trying to think. Maybe it wasn't The Rock. It was maybe something else, but
I don't remember that. I haven't seen that in a long time.
Yeah, I just saw it recently, and even me seeing it recently, I don't remember. So
there you go. You're I probably saw it in the 90s,
right.
Or when. Yeah.
Yeah, that was, so I had last seen it actually in the 2000s because I got the Criterion version of it. And I was like, well, okay, nice. I got it used. And I was like, well, I can't believe Criterion made this movie, but I'm going to, that it had the Michael Bay commentary. But then I saw it recently because I did a solo podcast on some 90s Nicolas Cage action. So it's still a fun one. It's the kind of movie that I don't think they would ever make today. I think, or they would make it. It would be like a Netflix original, and it would be shot in a Bulgaria that passes for Alcatraz in San Francisco.
Bulgaria is a magical land if they could pull that off.
Exactly. Yes. Now, speaking of sort of the Netflix and all of that kind of thing, so one of the things that, speaking of the Toy Man, he mentioned that he saw the Big Boss on TV 38 in Boston, which is a channel we got where I lived in Southern Maine. It would, essentially on weeknights when they weren't showing Bruins or Red Sox games, they had a thing called the Movie Loft, where they would spot kind of more mainstream movies. So that's pretty much how I saw every mainstream. I mean, Gone with the Wind, Wise Guys, I kind of everything in between Wise Guys and Gone with the Wind I saw on that channel. So, but on the weekends too, if they weren't showing sporting events, they would just show all kinds of movies. And I had kind of forgotten about that. I remember my dad would watch Westerns on there, but I forgot that you'd see something like a Hong Kong movie on there, or something like what we're going to be talking about today, Cold Harvest. It's this thing that I think before the days of Law and Order having thousands of episodes that channels would just, show all weekend. Like
Right.
we used to have these kinds of movies on just regular TV, just like, just even if you didn't have cable, right?
Right.
Rabbit ears, you could get these movies.
Oh yeah. I mean, we did not have cable for a long time until we moved. And so when these UHF channels would pop up, and two of them popped up during my youth, and one was channel 61, and that had the Kung Fu Theater on it. And I'm sure I watched this, the big ball. Well, at that point, Fists of Fury,
Right.
as many times as they would show it, I would watch it. I love that movie, and I was so happy that we finally covered it on the podcast. But yeah, you'd have that, and then I remember then we got Channel 19 came in a little bit deeper into the 80s, and like the first night they showed Animal House
Yes.
uncut, and I was like, what? And I'm like a kid, so I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna sneak and watch this
Yes.
uncut. I got to see Donald Sutherland's ass. I mean, come on.
Right, which he only did that because I can't think of the actor's name that was playing opposite from Indiana Jones.
Karen Allen.
Karen Allen, she was nervous about doing, showing her bare buttocks, and he was like, "Well,
Right.
if you're nervous, I'll just show mine too." And she was like, "Oh, okay." And
Right.
yeah, so he was being he was being a gentleman. It was out of a sense of honor, and
Mhm.
yeah.
Right. What's good for the goose?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, we had another channel in New Hampshire called WNDS, where they actually stayed independent through the whole like UPN, because like WSBK became a UPN channel, and other ones became like WB, all that kind of thing that happened.
Right.
But WNDS stayed independent the whole time, and they were one that you could, in my area, you could get with just rabbit ears, because I had friends who didn't have cable as well. Like I was fortunate, like we got it on our little dirt road in the mid 80s, I believe, and so. It was kind of like a big deal, because I remember He-Man suddenly it suddenly was like in better colors and everything. I was like this like I was like Orko. I don't remember Orko looking like that. That doesn't make any sense.
Oh, fuck Orko. I hate him.
Exactly. But I remember on WNDS, like between the movies that they would have all kinds of, I mean, the thing that my friends knew them for was the block of like The Simpsons and Star Trek The Next Generation. That was kind of their thing. But then also on Friday nights, they had this action syndication block of Renegade, and then, our star we're going to be talking about here coming up, Bryan Genesse, Street Justice.
Oh, yes.
I mean, for whatever I was, like 12, 13, I guess at the time. I can't remember how old I would have been when Street Justice was on, but that was like a fun, you do like a sleepover and get a bunch of junk food and watch those two shows. That wasn't a bad deal.
No, I want to do that now, actually, if I could.
Right. Yes.
So I wouldn't have heartburn as soon as I was done eating.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. That's the problem, right? Is that like the bag of Doritos, they still taste the same, right? Like
Yeah.
and it still has the same like addictive taste. Like I don't know what they put in that cheese dust that like is so addicting that like you can't just eat. There's something in that though that makes you eat the whole thing.
Of course.
Yeah, but at our age now, it's like when you do that, I think that's why parents are so keen on telling kids like, oh, you're going to ruin your appetite, you're going to all these things, because it's not because they're worried about the kids, but it's more like they think about themselves and they're like, geez, if I ate a whole bag of Doritos for dinner, I'd be dead.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You'll be, the minute you lay down, it's like, oh boy, I shouldn't have ate those.
Right. Yeah. And the famotidine or whatever it's,
oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's on a constant around here. That's
yeah.
Better keep that in stock at all times. Yeah. And the nice fruit chewy tablet and acid tablets too, just in case you need a little extra.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause like the stores are really good too about putting the little bags at the checkout. But I've also noticed grocery stores are good now about like pricing Doritos in a way that makes it like almost like a it's not that bad, because it's like everything's expensive now. But the grocery store is like, well, actually, if you buy 3 of them, for, they're only $4 a piece for 3. And it's like,
oh yeah,
and it's like recently I did do this. I had the 3 bags in my cart, and I was like, what am I doing? This is not. I'm actually going to get out of this with nothing, as opposed to $12 for 3 bags of Doritos.
Doritos.
Yeah. But it is like with these movies, it is kind of one of those things where, I remember on my site, I was having trouble getting into those tap out movies that were big at the time in the 20, like, I guess it was the late 2000s, early 2010s, like the Hector Echeverria kind of movies, stuff like that. And they weren't working for me. And I was like, well, what if I just, maybe I just need to, go back to the old times where I was eating Doritos and Mountain Dew. So actually, if you see the episode, the review, I think it's one of them was Beat Down, and I can't remember the other movie, but if you see the reviews, I've got like a picture of like the bag of Doritos and a big 2-liter bottle of Mountain Dew. And I would have been in my like late 20s, early 30s at that time. And I did that. And I was like, I felt dizzy after. So I can't even imagine what would happen now if I did that.
Right.
Yeah. It did help with the movies though. I will say, I was like, I kind of liked Beat Down with a bag of Doritos and a 2-liter bottle of Mountain Dew in my system. Some
things just go together.
Exactly.
But we always have the consequences of our decisions. So
yes, exactly. Well, I mean, I guess it's a good segue. Speaking of what goes together, we've got I guess I think Isaac Florentine and Gary Daniels go together. So this is the first time you've been on to talk Gary Daniels on here.
Right.
So I thought maybe we'd start with him. Like, what are your thoughts on Gary Daniels?
Gary Daniels is, somebody I didn't think I watched enough of back in his heyday. I do remember seeing some of Gary Daniels stuff, but man, I mean, he is like the PM poster boy. Yeah. And then, and all of those are fantastic. I mean, he's one of those guys you almost wonder how he didn't go further. I mean, obviously not the greatest actor in the world, but he's got the look for sure. And, I think the ladies would have loved that accent. Why didn't we get some mainstream Gary Daniels?
Right, because I think the big one is Fist of the North Star, right? That one just didn't work out.
Right.
I was trying to think he was also supposed to do a Hard Case adaptation, the old Malibu comic, and he does I guess that's like an 8-minute video that he did of Hard Case, but that just never came off. But I thought there was another, because I mean, Dacascos is another one like that, right? Where Dacascos, Crying Freeman doesn't do well. Double Dragon wasn't the movie he was hoping it would be, and the next thing you know, he's direct to video. And yeah, I guess that was the same for him. I guess that's the big one is Fist of the North Star.
Makes sense. And I mean, and that they even did that with Dolph.
Yeah,
I mean, Dolph got demoted really quickly because like Red Scorpion didn't do well, so then like, well, we're not going to do much with Punisher.
Right.
And so like stuff would get out, or then obviously, Universal Soldier, but he had the rising Van Damme star to kind of help pull him back up a bit. And yeah, I don't know what the deal was back then where it's like there was no 3 strikes, you're out. It's like 1 strike and you're done. But then there's other cases like freaking Jeff Speakman where I think Perfect Weapon did all right, and he kind of almost had the same crap happen to him. So I don't know.
Right. Or Thomas Ian Griffin, right, is another one that
right.
Yeah, I mean, he's fantastic in the third Karate Kid movie, and then and I mean, is that it? Is it because he was such a good baddie in the third Karate Kid? But I mean, I guess once Seagal became big, and it was just like we can only have one.
He ruined everything.
Yeah,
is what you're saying.
I
agree.
Yeah, I think him and Van Damme together, and I love Van Damme too. I mean, it's just like Van Damme was kind of like on coke throughout the '90s and just like causing like a menace on set. And then, and maybe that makes it worse with Seagal because he wasn't on anything. He was just with Seagal through the 90s.
Right.
It was just like, I mean,
if he was on something, he may have been better. I don't know.
Exactly. That's a good point. Yeah. And I guess,
I mean, if he was on cocaine, he wouldn't look the way he looks now. I can assure you that.
Well, that's true. Yeah. I guess, he's unfortunately, one of we're talking about Doritos, right? And how addictive those are. It's like, maybe there should be a law about the addictive qualities. People should study the addictive qualities in Doritos or McDonald's, right? Was it Black Dawn where he's, picking some guy up at the police, or he's breaking some guy out of prison. And then when he's driving him to the drop-off point, there's McDonald's scattered across the dashboard. So
there's a McDonald's in the background of one of his movies too. Is it Driven to Kill?
Yeah, so I think Driven to Kill. I think so. There's the one in I think it was The Keeper that actually has a McDonald's I've been to in San Antonio that they showed. So and I think there's a Bulgarian McDonald's in one of them as well. So yeah, he's
Bulgaria has everything. They have Alcatraz and McDonald's, according to what you're telling us.
Yes, yeah. I think the Millennium guys, Davidson and Lerner or whatever, they can make anything on that set in Bulgaria.
They can. They're good.
Yeah, they made
New
Massachusetts in 211, so they made.
There you go.
Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, Daniels is. It's amazing because I mean, this movie here we're going to be talking about. This is with Isaac Florentine, and I think it's interesting because this movie comes out in '99, right at the same time as Bridge of Dragons, which is another one. Thinking of like Dolph, where he's another one in that same category.
Right.
And for some reason, this one was made in South Africa, and that one was made in Bulgaria before they had their set. So Florentine was bouncing around making these movies with these two guys.
And then he also did U.S. SEALs too, but that was a couple years after. Was that like 01 or 02?
Yeah, sort of the same time, right? And that has Daniels as well, right?
No, that's Michael Worth.
Right. Okay. Right.
That's Worth and Marshall Teague and Damien Chapa.
That's right. What was the one that Daniels did? It was like something like that, but it wasn't.
He may have done Did he do a Delta Force?
That's right.
It wasn't Operation Delta Force. It wasn't, obviously. It had Delta Force in the title.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So that's right. The Delta Force won the Lost Patrol. That's what. Yeah. He was Captain James Well, which actually that was right around the time. That was the same year as this movie. It was 99. He had quite a run in 99. He did a Sons of Thunder episode. He did No Tomorrow for PM. He did Cold Harvest, this movie we're going to be talking about, where he played two roles, right? Roland Chaney and Oliver Chaney, because that's the kind of thespian he is. He can play two roles in one movie.
Indeed.
And then Delta Force 1, The Lost Patrol came out. So, I mean, that's kind of the thing with him in the 90s and into the 2000s is that he's kind of like what Atkins is now, which, I mean, Atkins has kind of slowed down a little bit. But, Atkins, he'd have like 5 movies a year. It seems like Daniels does as well. And it's like they kind of run the gamut of good and bad. It's like, especially like you said, those PM movies, that those same years of those PM movies, I think like the same year as as Recoil. No, it's Blood Moon. He has Blood Moon 97, which is a really good one. And then, but also Pocket Ninjas in 97, which isn't a really good one.
No. Yeah, he had an interesting career. And it's like, it kind of made sense. Had some of those low budget overseas movies that he did right away. Then he got into PM, but he wasn't instantly a star. He was kind of like a supporting guy, Ring of Fire, Final Impact. And then they're like, oh, we're going to make this guy a star. And boy, did they. I mean, again, he became like the poster boy for PM. And then, I think, one of the things, Atkins at least has had a chance to kind of dabble in some of more of the mainstream movies. Like he was in the John Wick and he was in Expendables. So he had a little bit bigger Doctor Strange. Yeah, he had a chance. He wasn't the big main star, but he had his foot in the door at least. Where Gary Daniels didn't even really get that far.
No, because when he was in the Expendables, the first Expendables movie, he said I don't remember I think it was an interview he did with Atkins, actually, on Atkins's a show on YouTube. I think he told him that he was only supposed to play like a really bit part in the Expendables, but then like he had these ideas about like where, because he was like Eric Roberts' character's security or whatever, and he's like, well, shouldn't I stand over here so I have a better vantage point and all this kind of stuff? And I guess Eric Roberts talked to Stallone and was like, hey, this guy kind of knows a little bit more than just your usual like extra. Maybe we should have him do more stuff. And that's when they came up with the idea of having him fight Statham and all of that kind of stuff. And so he wasn't really even supposed to have that big of a part in the Expendables either. He sort of sold himself while he was on set, which for us, right, in our kind of, our fandom of these kind of low budget movies, it was almost like, whereas everybody else was excited to see Stallone or whatever, we were excited to see Gary Daniels.
Right, Gary. Yeah, I was excited to see him in that movie he did with Stone Cold.
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
I was like, oh, Gary Daniels is still at this? Good for him.
Yes. Well, because he said he met Austin on the set of Expendables, and then when he was making that movie, that he was like, oh, I need somebody, and he called Daniels, and Daniels was like, yeah, sure, I'll be happy to be in the movie with you. So I don't know if he did the same with Eric Roberts, who gets killed off at the beginning of that movie. I don't know if that's a spoiler for anybody. It's in the first 5 minutes, I think, of the movie that he gets killed off.
You just
I know.
ruined it for everyone.
Yeah, I ruined that one. Yeah, I was trying to think. That one is that Keone Waxman who does that one? I can't remember.
I don't remember either, but I don't even remember the name. It wasn't The Hunted, was it? Or was it?
Was it Tactical Assault, or that's the one he did with Seagal?
Yeah, that's a different.
Oh, was it Hunt to Kill? Does that sound right?
It has Hunt in there.
Yeah, something like that. It takes place on the border between Montana and Canada, I think. And so, it's I can't remember if that was somebody who directed. I want to say it was Keone Waxman, but I could be wrong. It was another director. It's interesting because he starts around the same time here that Isaac Florentine, who's sort of I don't know, kind of done with the I'm drawing a blank on the Power Rangers. I don't know. I couldn't think of the name of the toys. I guess because I did, they're kind of after our time. So
exactly.
My brother, my younger brother, he was born in '88, so he had all the Power Rangers. So
Voltron ripoff bullshit.
Exactly. Yes, I remember my nephew. He's born in '06. I remember he was like 3 or 4. He wanted to play with all my old toys and all of my brother's old toys, and we had to explain to him like, no, Grampy threw them out. And he was like, "What? You threw out all their?" He's like, "Yeah, because he did. My dad took all my He-Man figures, all my brother's Power Ranger, all the stuff from the basement, took them to the dump." And my nephew's like, "Well, why didn't you leave them for me?" And my dad's like, "Well, we didn't know you were coming." And it was like,
right,
poor 4-year-old.
Why didn't you leave? I'd say, why didn't you leave them for eBay? You just threw away a lot of money.
Right. Well, I think he tossed them out before eBay, before there was an eBay. I think.
I'm sure. Yeah. I got rid of stuff when there was eBay, but I'm like, who's going to want these old wrestling magazines?
Right.
I don't have room for this.
Right. Yeah. And
I'm like, oh, even if I just kick myself for that.
Yeah. No, I do. Exactly. No, you're right. It is Hunt to Kill. It was Keone Waxman. Yeah. So it was one. I think it's like this. It's like the lone non-Seagal in the sea of Seagal movies that Waxman was doing at that time.
Everybody deserves a break once in a while, even you, Keone.
Exactly. It was, and I can only imagine what it was like when he was doing that, because as we joked on a previous time that you were on, that he's the he's the friend with the pickup truck that's always going to help you move, and it's just like, I wonder if line producer like Ben Sachs or somebody was like calling him like, Seagal wants to do another movie, and like, I'm in Montana doing Hunt to Kill. I can't, are you sure you can't get to Bulgaria? Like, we could fly you there. No, I can't. I'm making this movie. I can't go to Bulgaria and do another Seagal movie. He's just gonna have to wait, And he probably got like Don LaFauntleroy or whatever, one of those other actors at the Seagal movies. Now, the other name in this movie is Bryan Genesse, who we just mentioned earlier with Street Justice. Yes. I mean, another guy who never really quite got. I mean, he's even a tier below Daniels, I think. Yeah. But I mean, he's always a lot of fun. It seems like in these movies.
And I've got to say, this is the movie that made me a Genesse fan, because I think I'd seen him just in like The Circuit.
Right. Yeah.
And I think he's very briefly in there. He's got like a long Paul Heyman like leather coat, right. And he's just like there. And I knew that. I think I saw Traitor's Heart, which isn't horrible, but it's not really as actiony as his other New Image stuff like this one.
Yeah.
So I was like, what is like? I didn't hate him, but I didn't have any reason. But then I see him in this, and I'm like, oh, he's great. And then I'm, buying Street Justice DVD collection. So yeah, I got a little way into the Bryan Genesse filmography after this movie.
Yeah, because it is. I mean, he's kind of. I knew him from Street Justice. That's where I was introduced to him, and I wouldn't even known his last name was Genesse if it hadn't been from the commercials for Street. Where they'd be like, Carl Weathers and Bryan Genesse in Street Justice. So I was like, oh yeah, I can't wait to. But that was how I knew him. And then when I started doing these movies for the site stuff, I think he came up in one of the Shadow Chasers. I think he's in one of the Project Shadow Chasers, something like that.
Yeah, that's an excellent one. That's probably my favorite. It's Project Shadow Chaser 2. Frank Zagarino.
Yes. Because
it's Die Hard at a nuclear plant.
That's right. Because what I remember is that one was one of those ones that was in the action movie block after TNT Nitro. And I remember my friend and I watching it. And there's Genesse running around this plant, And then there's Zags, with his Annie Lennox flat top, walking around, or Susan Powder flat top, walking around beating people up. And there's that scene in the movie, because I hadn't seen the first Project Shadow Chaser, so I didn't know Frank Zagarino.
Me either. I still haven't seen it. It doesn't matter.
I did finally watch it for the site, but I didn't know he was an android. And so somebody, I can't remember, it was like Beth Toussaint or somebody, or Todd, somebody's on the radio telling Genesse, hey, that guy's an android. And my buddy and I burst out laughing. We're just like, "What? He's an android? Like, what are we doing here?" And it was like, it made it that much more entertaining. And then, of course, now I know it's like, well, it's a series of movies where Zagarino was playing an evil android. It wasn't just that one movie.
Right. Yeah, I still haven't seen the original one because I believe Chad covered that for the site. So then I'm like, well, I don't have to watch it, and I don't. It's nowhere to be found either. It's like I would watch it, but it's. Every time I think about it, I'm like, oh, is this anywhere?
Right.
It's not on YouTube. It's not on any of the streamers. And I mean, it might be like an out of print something, but you can go, no, I'm not doing that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, because when I want to say when I reviewed it for the site in like the late 2000s, I think it was the late 2000s, I believe it was a double disc or a double movie from Netflix that I got, which I think was like Shadow Chaser 1 and 2, both from Netflix. So yeah, I think that's how I did 1 and 2. I think. Actually, it's Project Shadow Chaser 3000. Is that part
yeah,
1?
I have that DVD.
Okay.
Because I loved Project. I think I had to buy it on. Did I get it on VHS? Was this one of my VHS finds that was real cheap? And I'm like, ooh, I'll get this because I'm an idiot. And then I was like, oh, now I need this on DVD. And yeah, it comes with that 3000, which is not very good.
That's right. Okay. Yeah, because that was the thing back then, is that, like you talk about eBay, there was a period of time in the 2000s where eBay was a place where people would dump their stuff. And
right.
You could get all of these deals. I remember I had a thing for basketball jerseys. And, as you can imagine, I got married, and suddenly, like, the basketball jerseys, they ended up in a tote or a big, bin or something. And then we needed the bin for our recycling bin. So now they're on the floor. The cat uses them as his cat bed. But at the time, I was like, oh, basketball. I was getting all these, champion basketball jerseys, all kinds of, like, different names, like a Dominique Wilkins Celtics one, all that kind of stuff. And early on, you could get like 4 or 5 for like $20, right. But what happened was that people were like, making a living off them, and they were buying them and then reselling them at this jacked up price. And I was just like, I can't do this. Like, I can't spend $80 on a cheap, but like, that's not, I don't want that. And I noticed like everything was starting to creep into that direction, that people were buying and reselling things at jacked up prices. And at that time, it was like the VHSs weren't there yet. But it didn't take long for people to be like, oh, I don't know, whatever, like something like Shadow Chaser on VHS, and be like, oh, I could sell this thing for $50. And it's like, no, you shouldn't be selling that for $50. It's like, who's paying $50 for Project Shadow Chaser on VHS?
Hopefully it wasn't me. No, I didn't pay that much.
Right. But there was that time where you could get those for like, you could get like 10 of them for $5 a piece, or like, 10 of them for $5 even. Somebody just wanted to get.
Yeah, I got so many like Dudikoff that I had never somehow missed out, like River of Death and Avenging Force. Somehow I missed out on Avenging Force. I still don't understand how I did that. But
I did too, though. I think I got that on VHS from Amazon for like $3, I think.
So I was like, I started, and then of course now they've been they're on Blu-ray, so I upgraded. But yeah, I mean, at the time I was like, this is amazing. I've got all these movies that somehow I missed. Like I got No Retreat, No Surrender 3, Blood Brothers. I've got that sitting there in VHS. I got Rotor, which I wish I didn't. But you know what? It's a hell of a cover. I'll still always say that. That is one of the finest posters and covers of all action movie history. Yeah. And then the movies. But unfortunately, at some point, you have to hit play, and that all goes away.
Yeah. Because that might have been the number one Siren Song video store movie, where you're just like, you're walking through. Now, I would say in my case, I never saw it in the video store era. I ended up watching it when I first started our podcast here in the like 2014, 2015, when I had Jamie as my co-host. We did that one, and we were both like, why did we do that? But it kind of felt like I had to do it. But I remember the video store. I think what saved me was that you'd still have like the Rothrock or the Don the Dragon Wilson videos that would be there, and it's like, oh, there's a new Blood Fist movie I've got to watch, that kind of saved me from Rotor. But you'd see it there, and it just looks so cool. It's like, how do I not rent this movie?
Yeah, I don't remember if I saw it or not, or did I see it and then like look a little deeper and like, who are any of these people? Right. I don't know any of these people. I'd rather go with, as you pointed, like, here's a known commodity.
Yeah,
I'll get this movie with Billy Blanks in it instead because I know him.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, back then trailers worked. I think that's another thing, now you wouldn't be able to put the information in your phone. You'd have to write it on a piece of paper, maybe, if you needed to get the title down. But I can remember being like, oh, I'm watching. I think that's how I learned about Cynthia Rothrock. I can't remember whether it was the China O'Brien 2 poster at the video store. Because I feel like I remember seeing that. But I also think that like it was a China O'Brien trailer on another movie, like a Don the Dragon Wilson movie or something like that, where I was like, oh, this movie looks really good. I got to check out I got to see what Cynthia Rothrock's all about.
Right. Yeah. Oh, if we could only go back.
Yeah, it's a shame. But I mean, I guess, this movie here we're chatting about, Cold Harvest, I guess, I had to watch it on Fossum, but you actually have a copy of it. And I think I got it on DVD from Netflix. It's another Netflix one when you could get DVDs from Netflix, and I first started my site. I think that's how I watched this originally. So I don't own a copy of it as far as I know. So I did the Fossum route, which, Fossum likes to put their commercials in at the worst times. There's that scene where Daniel's in the beginning of the movie where he's with some old friend from school that remembered playing baseball with his brother, has him at gunpoint. He's like just pointing a gun at him, and it's like, Daniel's is like staring him down, and it's just like, oh no, here's a commercial for some bad Lifetime movie that's being played on Fossum this month, and it's like, that's not the time for that commercial. That's not
no. There's got to be a way, and I'm sure there is. I'm sure it's just automated where it's like it's certain a minute mark. You just got to you should think about this. Think about this, Fossum. That's not very Fossum of you at all.
No, exactly. Well, because going back to the TV days, like these movies would be cut up for TV in a very specific way. And,
right.
Yes, they would talk about how they were formatted or whatever, so you might miss certain things so that they would be cut up that way. Remember there was a big controversy with Home Alone 2 in Canada, was that I guess they had always cut out the Donald Trump scene because that's how they fit it in during the window.
Right.
But when he became president, they were like, oh, Canada, trying to throw shade on Trump. And it's like, well, they had plenty of different ways to throw shade on Trump, but that actually wasn't one of them. That wasn't,
right.
Wasn't what they did. But that was the thing, right? It was that you would get some kind of TV edit, so it wouldn't exactly be the movie you were looking at. But at least with the TV edit, is the commercial would come in at a point where, whether maybe like a reel had changed or something like that, something is happening in the movie that it wasn't like, in the middle of somebody telling somebody else something and they just go, oh, we're going to go to commercial here.
There is one, if I can take us off topic as we always do, but there is one TV movie, well, it's not a TV, it's a movie that I've seen on TV, probably USA Network, my beloved USA Network. How did you do this to me? It was when they would show Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Oh, okay, yes.
And it would be right before the desert chase. And they'd be like huddled there, like, oh, what are you going to do? I'll think of something. And it goes right to commercial.
Oh,
it's like, why didn't you just put it like right before that whole little segment? Because then it goes right into, and the desert chase is one of my favorite sequences of that film.
Yeah.
And that's saying something because there's a lot of freaking great sequences in all Indiana Jones movies. Well, maybe not the last one, but listen, that's the first one. And it was very good. So, yeah, I just always felt that was kind of an odd placement. That's the one where I'm like, why? Why'd you do it like that? And then, of course, sometimes I'd ask myself, why am I watching this on USA Network when I probably have the VHS and definitely have, as time went on, had the DVD and now have the Blu-ray? But why? But you know what? When they would show those marathons of Star Wars and Indiana Jones, I was there. Just put the damn thing on and sit there.
Yeah. Well, because that's what they did. They would... You'd flip through the channels, and there weren't as many cable channels at that time. And something like a USA would be like kind of lower. I mean, I think on our cable was like 30, it was like something like that. So it wasn't like I was going through like hundreds of channels to get to something. Right. And so you'd flip through, and you'd see like the sequence where he's dealing with the snakes, or the guy who's got the whip and he shoots him, and like when you see that scene's about to happen, and that scene's coming, it's like you want to see that scene, and then it's just like once you see that scene, like it's 45 minutes later and I've been watching the whole movie.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's so many movies like that. It'd be like, oh yeah, I'll get to Desert Chase. Oh, I'll get to this. Yeah, you may as well just keep watching.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
That's how I always was with Death Wish 3. Like, or the only one I'm kind of good with is American Ninja 2, because sometimes if I could get to the blind beggar and just the little aftermath where they come in with the car all beat up and the music goes down, the boom, 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 doing, boom, it gets a little comedic. I will watch that, and then I'm like, okay, I can tap out now and go do be productive somewhere else, because that's pretty much the peak. Although again, the rest of the film is good, but it peaks right there.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, because you could. There's a little bit of a lull there that gets you out. It's interesting because on the PM podcast when John was talking about Last Man Standing with Jim Wallace, Jim made this point that I had never considered before, that PM was not just making movies for the video market, but they're making it for cable TV, with this idea in mind that you might jump in at any point, just like we're talking about here. And it's like, no matter where you jump in to a PM flick, they want to be able to pull you in. And I think that's kind of the deal, right? Is that they, I guess USA also would probably want to cut up their movies in such a way to get you to sit there and watch them, as much as possible. But American Ninja 2, that's canon. They weren't making that for the video market. They wanted that to be on the big screen, and so they never really thought about the fact that, like, it takes a little bit more to walk out of the theater, I think.
You've made the commitment, you got in your car, you got there, you put some shoes and a shirt on, because if not you'd get no service. So you went there and you committed to it. So it would have to be real bad for you to walk. I've never walked out in a movie. Have you?
No. I, as a kid, I remember I saw Batman. I was 10, and that one freaked me out. So I would kind of just go to the bathroom just to kind of get away from it for a little bit, to kind of come, kind of reset myself. But I've never actually left it before. I will say I went and saw the Nosferatu movie from
last year.
Yeah. And I went for like a 9:30 a.m. matinee. People were leaving that one, and I don't know that it was so bad that you needed to leave it, but people were leaving. I mean, I guess you have some like very like direct to video Exorcist sequel level like possession stuff in it with Lily Depp. And I guess maybe some people that just hurt their sensibilities. I mean, I guess for me, it's like, with these movies, I was like, I've seen a lot worse than that, so I can handle it. But that's the only one I can think of. That's a relatively recent example. But yeah, I don't know about people leaving. A friend of mine saw Irreversible in the theater, and I don't know if you remember that. If you remember that movie. Where
I do not.
So it was a movie. I think it was the guy who did Memento, I think, did that movie, and there's a really graphic rape scene in it. And so there's Monica Bellucci, I believe, is and then her boyfriend is Vincent Cassel, I think, and he goes on a rampage to kill the person who did it. But that sequence is just so, I mean, like, I watched it on DVD at my apartment. I had to like turn the sound down, like make sure I had all the doors closed and everything, because it was so graphic. But my friend saw it in the theater, in the indie theater, and he said people walked out during that sequence.
That makes sense.
Yeah. That was too much. I remember my friends and I went and saw Spanking the Monkey in the theater. And I don't remember that one where the main character has sex with his mom. It was funny thing was it was directed by David O. Russell, the guy who does like The Fighter and all these like big movies now. But we saw that in the indie theater. The scene when the son and the mom start to hook up, my friends started losing it. They're like, "Oh my God, no, don't do it!" And I mean, they were like literally yelling like that in the theater. But I guess because the indie theater is a more laid back vibe. Like, there's a couple in front of us that were making out the whole time. All they do is kind of look up and laugh with my buddy, and like people were kind of just laughing with them about it. Like, they just kind of everybody took it in stride. So that's the closest I know to like a freak out in the theaters. My friends just were like, "No, he's not doing that. No," and it was like, yeah, that's what's happening.
I missed out on that one too. I'm afraid to say.
Yes, the funny thing is they played that on Bravo in the 90s, because Bravo used to be a channel that showed independent movies.
Right. I remember those days.
It's funny how all the channels used to be what their names were at one time.
At one time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Now you don't know. Yeah. It's so, yeah. And I guess, with Cold Harvest here, I guess, there used to be a place for a Cold Harvest on TV, but now, yeah, there's, you can find it on Fossum where the commercials come in and
Every
interrupt.
once in a while, there's an over-the-air channel called Charge.
Mm.
And when that Charge first came out, it was like, okay, cool. Because there's Comet, which is sci-fi and horror, and there was Charge, which was action-oriented. And it's like, yeah, to what you mentioned, they like at some point they gave up and like, oh, we could just show TV shows all day.
Yes.
But yeah, at first it was like, okay, they would have some movie, and every now and again I would catch. It's been a while, but like on a Sunday, late Sunday, you would catch, and it'd be like, oh, this is a freaking New Image movie. I think Danger Zone.
Oh yeah,
with Billy Zane was on. I'm like, what the hell? They're showing New Image movies on TV. Right. What, is this something that always happens, or it was like a fluky thing? It's kind of like there's another over-the-air one called Movies.
Oh yes, yeah.
Shows movies, which is good, and they'll go through runs where it's just like real old, black and white stuff, and it's like, okay, that's not really my thing. But then every now and again, like one day I happened to be off work and I turned on the TV and they had like an old school Jackie Chan on, and I'm like, what the heck? Is this something that happens? Do I have to take every Friday off? Is it Chopsaki Fridays? What's going on here? But again, it was like a random, just for whatever reason they decided to throw a Jackie Chan. I don't know.
That's awesome. Yeah. No, I remember with Comet, there used to be a bar here called Black Cat, which actually the building still exists with the sign Black Cat, but the bar is closed. So it was kind of an alternative Gen X kind of place, and where I live in deep South Philly, that's like very like hardcore, Italian American, Irish American kind of bars that show sports and drink and everybody fights and stuff like that kind of thing. Like,
right.
The Black Cat, indie Gen X vibe kind of thing. It was cool for us, but it just didn't last. But I remember they used to show Comet. I remember, one time they had Scarecrow on. Lance Henriksen.
Love that.
Yeah.
They love that one.
Yeah. And it's just like, you're just sitting there like, I'm having a beer, and I think they serve pierogies. That was their one meal food thing items that they had. So I don't think we were eating, we were just drinking. But I'm just like, I can't believe I'm just sitting at a bar that's playing Scarecrow. This is fantastic. But then it was like old movies after, like you said, it was like, old sci-fi movies after. I think they played MST3K on there too.
Yeah, they made here's their movie lineup for this month. Day of the Dead, yeah. From Dusk Till Dawn, Galaxy Quest.
Oh yeah.
Labyrinth.
Oh, nice.
Night of the Demons, Night of the Living Dead, Piranha, Season of the Witch, Sharknado, The Boys from Brazil. Don't know what the hell that is. The Dark Crystal. Oh, and here's a nice little. I wonder if this is a double feature. The Final Countdown and Time Cop.
Ooh, okay, all right. Yeah, it's interesting.
Zombie Apocalypse and Zombie Night will wrap up their movie offerings.
You get some zombies. It's funny that I would think Labyrinth and Dark Crystal would make a good double feature.
That would too. Yeah, I would assume that they are going to schedule those back to back.
Yeah, I remember my friends, because there's the Dance Magic Dance song, but David Bowie had those flashy pants, so my friend would sing pants magic, and it's so that's how every time I hear Labyrinth, I just get pants magic pants in my head. So yeah, so yeah, I haven't watched Comet in a while. I think now with the whole streaming thing, I've just kind of
you can just find whatever you want on Tubi.
Yeah, I watch 2 channels now. I watch MeTV. My wife and I, earlier today I was watching a Perry Mason episode, and I couldn't figure out Gary Collins' name. I couldn't remember it, so I think I had to look it up on IMDb. So I think as my memory starts to go as I get older, IMDb is going to be there to be my memory.
Would you have recognized the Canadian giant Gary Robbins, though?
I think so. I would hope so. I think so. That's a good question. I don't know. I guess no, because it's like I knew the name Gary Collins, and I knew who he was, and I could not put that name
Just
together.
such a generic name,
Yeah, I couldn't pull it. And then the Matlock episode after, I didn't stick around for that. So kind of to your point about sort of like there's a point where you got to hit the road and leave. But the Matlock episode had Billy Zane. Speaking of Billy Zane, he was, and I was like, I gotta go. I can't stick around for Matlock all morning.
Right.
Yeah. So, and you're getting older too when you're watching Matlock on MeTV. But that's the one channel. The other one, of course, would be like the baseball, sports, like live sporting events are still, yeah. But yeah, I mean, movies like Cold Harvest, they used to be on. They used to be on linear TV because all we had, I guess, was linear TV. So it's. But,
right, it was just TV back then.
Right, exactly. It was just you turned on, right? There was no streaming, right? The only, there's, if somebody was really cool, they had satellite TV, and so
right.
you would go over to their house and they would change the channel, and it would take 5 minutes for the satellite to turn before it moved to the next channel. Yeah, well, yeah. I guess with Cold Harvest here, I guess we'll kind of get stuck in here on this. I think this is kind of a broad strokes movie. There's there's not a lot of it's the basic premise for people who haven't seen this one before. Gary Daniels is a bounty hunter, but he's also a guy who has a gene that allows him to make antibodies to a plague that's affecting the planet, and he and his wife Barbara Crampton are trying to escape so that they can create the vaccine. And Bryan Genesse and his gang of ne'er-do-wells, they ambush the thing. They put a bullet between Gary Daniels' brother, or him, it's still Gary Daniels, bullet between his eyes, but he dies. But Barbara Crampton escapes, and fortunately she escapes to her brother, the bounty hunter, or his brother, the bounty hunter, Gary Daniels. And so now they're kind of on the run, but then they're also fighting back, and leads to a big fight at the end. And fortunately, Gary Daniels prevails and is able to take him down. But yeah, so Chris, what are your thoughts on Cold Harvest?
Well, you just wrapped up the whole movie, so thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in and joining. We got to about 3 minutes of Cold Harvest talk for you, and talked about a lot of other nonsense. But yeah, this one, I do like that we do see the two Gary Daniels right away, and they're different because the Gary Daniels with the gene, and if they're twins, shouldn't the other Gary Daniels have the? Yes. Or no, they were doing some experimental stuff with them, and I think that may have mutated his genes or something.
Well, it was like they gave him so they should both have the gene. You're actually right, because you can't be if it's the gene, because no, you're absolutely right, because the whole point of the movie is that it's the Barbara Crampton ends up being pregnant, and so
they're the bait. Well, yeah. So
because identical twins have the same genes, like that's
right.
Yeah, that's the whole.
That's
point.
Why they look the same.
Right, exactly. So the whole movie makes no. I didn't even think of this.
Oh, geez. Now we really could just wrap it up, because I've just shot a huge hole in the whole movie.
Right, exactly. I mean, unless he was shot with the. He has the virus and the antibodies, but even then, I don't think you can pass virus and antibodies on to your child. I don't think that's how that works, because otherwise nobody would need to get tetanus shots or anything, or
right. Yeah. Well, yeah. Once your dad got whatever, you just would pass it along. His swimmers would just pass it along.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's not how it works.
No.
So yeah, we got, and he's the gentle soul of the two brothers because he has glasses on.
Glasses, right. Which when Genesse kills him, he steps on the glasses just to really drive that point home.
Yeah, and you hear that. So, and he was a big fan of pastrami sandwiches. Yes. We also find that out.
That's one of the best feats. Yeah. So I guess the opening sequence is just Daniels, the bounty hunter, bringing in a bounty, and it's kind of Old West stuff. And you're introduced to the Isaac Florentine. At that time, he liked a lot of sound effects. So you're introduced to the sound effects.
Yes.
There's some other guys that want to take his bounty. He doesn't let them. And so, he shoots them. So we get the sense that he's, that this Roland character that Daniels was playing is a real badass. And he goes and, he goes and drops off the bounty. They try to give him a hard time about paying the bounty. He's not hearing that either. And so he kind of, beats everybody up, shoots everybody if he can. And that's kind of our introduction to that Daniels. But then you're right, like the next Daniels, he's on the back, he's with Barbara Crampton on the back of a truck, and she points out, she's like, hey, look there's that old deli that used to be there. Because if you don't know, this is the post-apocalypse. A comet has crashed on Earth, and now it's like it's night and all the time.
A big dust.
Yeah.
Just nothing but dust in the atmosphere.
Right.
There's no sunlight coming in.
Yeah, which I
so
guess,
you don't know if it's night or day or night. They don't know. It's just dark all the time.
Yeah, is it noon, high noon, or midnight? Right? Yeah, nobody knows.
Take your pick.
Yep.
Flip a coin.
Flip a coin, exactly. And the brother Oliver here, who when she mentions the deli and the pastrami, because at first she's like mentioning these things and he doesn't want to hear it. He's like, I don't want to know, but then when she mentions the pastrami, it kind of warms his heart a little bit to think about that nice pastrami sandwich.
Yeah, it gives you heartburn. Yeah, we've talked about that earlier. You can't have that pastrami sandwich right now. If I have a pastrami sandwich right after we record,
right,
I may as well just stay up all night.
Exactly, right. Well, I've heard too, right, because you have to sit up, I think, for like a certain amount of time after you eat, because apparently gravity is supposed to help. And so if you lie down, so that pastrami sandwich, you can't eat a pastrami sandwich in bed, because you're just asking for trouble.
You're asking for trouble,
yeah. Exactly, yeah. But when the caravan gets ambushed, I mean, the first thing we see with Genesse is that his character doesn't know how to smoke a cigarette, it looks like.
No, but he does take great time to style his facial hair.
Yes.
I mean, that is on point, and it's very nice. It can't be easy to get that. I mean, it's a little color me bad. Has a little color me bad to it. But he sees this caravan and he just assumes it's got stuff in it, good stuff. He doesn't realize it's just people, and it's too late when he realizes why it was people, because these were very important people. But he's just in his ways of like it's like the Old West, and that's, I think, I know you had covered Bridge of Dragons.
Oh yes, actually recently. Yeah, it's kind of fun. Yeah,
right. And I remember I reached out to him like, I really probably need to rewatch that, because when I watched it, it was very similar to this, because it was a lot of like, what is this? Like, what time is this supposed to be happening in? What kind of world is this? Because it mixes things together, which is very much what this movie does as well. But for whatever reason, I accepted this one where it was like they were dressed like it's the Wild West, but it's the post-apocalyptic time, and there's dune buggy. Yeah, that dune buggy is like the coolest freaking thing. Anyway, but so I'm like, why I accepted that one, but of course, it was many years in between though.
Yes.
A lot of bad action movies in between really help you appreciate when you at least get freaking stars that like a Gary Daniels. So maybe that's why, but yeah. So, but it was very much like, oh, here comes the wagons. Let's see what's in there. And, he got pissed off because it was just people. And they almost all died, as you mentioned, with Oliver. Apparently they played a game. Apparently Little Ray, Oliver, and Roland all grew up together.
Right.
Probably in the before times.
Yeah, with the guy who runs the guy who works at the federal marshal's office that worked behind the counter. Right. So the four of them, I guess they all grew up together and played baseball
together and played some weird
Russian roulette,
non-deadly Russian roulette.
Right, with paintballs.
I don't know
that's
right. It was with paintballs. That is correct.
Yeah, which getting hit in the head with a paintball, I can't imagine feels. I mean, obviously it's not deadly, right? You're not going to die, though. You could take an eye out. Like it's
could.
Maybe that's why the one brother has glasses, and the other one doesn't. Maybe he took paintball dust to the eye, and he needs the glasses now.
Yeah, that could be. You've just solved a problem there, but so yeah, they play this Russian roulette, but this time for real.
Yes.
And so what they like unload. They each have to put one bullet down on the ground, take all the other bullets, and then load it real fast and then shoot. Yeah. And Oliver is just a nervous wreck, probably thinking about that pastrami or so. I don't know what. He's a bundle of nerves. And Lil Ray. Is there a big Ray? Was that his dad? Is he like Ray Jr. probably? So he became Lil Ray. and he didn't want to be called RJ. So he's just Little Ray. Little Ray shoots him, as you said, right between the eyes. His lady, Barbara Crampton, I don't remember her name. It's Barbara Crampton, and she's got reddish pants on, as will be described when they're on the lookout when they put a bolo on her.
Right.
She has reddish pants and a nice rack, basically,
That's
is the description.
The description. Yes. Yeah, she's Christine. That's her character name. But you're
Christine,
right.
That's right.
I think it's better if we call her Barbara Crampton for people's. Yeah, because I've already confused everybody too much with the two Gary Daniels.
It's double Gary Daniels. I'm wondering, and we talked about the double impact problem. Well, they never appear together, though. That's right. There you go. So people probably understand that it was Gary Daniels playing both roles. Where Double Impact has two Van Dams, that confuses some people out there. It's the same guy, everyone.
Right.
It's tricks. It's green screens. It's movie magic. You morons.
Yes. Well, that, and there's also this convoluted explanation for why they have accents and they don't. Right. They didn't grow up together. They're long lost brothers, which doesn't. Yeah, it's that. The things that we accept. And now, granted, we were young, like very young. I guess I think of being 10, 12, whatever, 13. It was like, as long as Van Damme is beating the crap out of Bolo Young, I'm okay with whatever you're going to sell me with. But yeah, there was a lot going on in those movies that we just sort of accepted, I guess, or even didn't accept, but we're okay with.
All right, what are you going to do? Well, you know what? I think the other thing is we didn't have the freaking internet to go on and complain about it.
Right,
so
that's true.
What are you going to do? Just sit there, bitch to your friends about it?
Yeah,
or you might just write a strongly worded letter to Imperial Entertainment, or right. I don't know.
Yeah. I would think, though, I bet as a 10, if I wrote if it was a 10-year-old or whatever age I was when Double Impact came, I think it was maybe a little older, but if I wrote a letter, I wonder if somebody from Imperial will be like, "Hey, that kid's a real go-getter. I'm gonna write him a letter back and give him a signed glossy from Van Damme." I mean, it would have probably been like the equivalent of like a pat on the head and go about your way, kid. But you wonder if
you get a signed glossy of Geoffrey Lewis and you'd love it.
I would have. It would have lasted until I went to college, and then when my dad cleaned everything out and threw it out, it probably would have gotten.
Oh, your dad threw millions of dollars worth of merchandise out. Yes. I hope he knows that.
Exactly. The funny thing was that he kept my comic books, but they were all in the basement. I didn't really take care of them that well, so they're no good anyway. But he kept those. He was like, "Oh, I kept your comics for you."
He knew, because then you knew. Oh, he might have Action Comics 1 down there. I don't know.
Yes, right. I'm trying to think what the best comic I would have been. Like maybe like New Mutants 100 or something something that was supposed to be a big deal, but that over time it was just once the market went, I never got the Death of Superman. I never bought that one. I don't know.
I have some of those. I have that, and I have some of the around after, but the ones I collected. But even early on, my G.I. Joes were kind of you'd take them everywhere with you, and they would just be, and I'm sure my parents probably still have a big box of them somewhere where just stuff that you just threw them in a box. You pulled them out on a rainy day to read them. It wasn't a hobby. It was just something you bought as a kid. It's like, shut up. You'd be there oh, Mom, can I get, just take it and shut up.
Yeah, exactly. Or remember the gas station had the rack that
right.
They would kind of be shoved against them. Yeah.
And whatever looked the coolest. And I just would pick out the coolest cover and be like, oh yeah, look at this. I like this one.
Yeah.
All right. And what was it? It was probably less than $1. So yeah, just shut up and get the thing. It's better than eating candy or something.
Right. Yeah. I remember that's how I learned Deadpool not Deadpool, Daredevil. He had Ghost Rider on it. And the reason why I collected Daredevil and not Ghost Rider was because Ghost Rider was some more expensive tier of comic. And it's for my allowance at that time, it's I wanted to maximize that with the most comics possible. So it's nope, Ghost Rider, you're out, So yeah, but Daredevil, he was I think he was he was the 75 cents to $1 tier. And then it went to $1.25, I remember. And that was at that point I was almost priced out because it was $1.25 for the lowest tier was getting too much.
I did want to point something out about this film.
Yes.
And I hope everyone can see it. The exposed brick that seems to just be painted on to these sets. Maybe a decal, but I think it's just paint.
Yes.
I think someone just painted a very flat looking exposed brick all throughout the set.
Yes. Well, there's that, and then do you remember? There's one point where I think it's when Daniels goes back to his house before, and then he meets Barbara Crampton there. That like one of the doors, it's like supposed to be a wooden door with like this not lattice work, but like indentations or whatever, and you can tell that it's painted, like the shadows and everything to make it look 3D has been painted on there.
I also like there's later where, and we're jumping way ahead, but just we're talking about this beautiful set that they built. Where he jumps out the window is like the whole damn thing like shakes, like the whole right. Wall shakes. Yes. But I also like when he's in the house because that's where, and that we're kind of following the story here. So Christine obviously freaks out. She just saw her husband dead. She goes to their old family home, and she's there looking through things, and that's where our man Roland rolls in, and he's there as well. And that's where these two meet. And, there's obviously some bad blood there because Roland kind of disappeared. Roland was in caused the accident that killed his parents. But yeah, so they're there. The bad guys realize, they're tracking Christine because the little stooge tech guy who was escorting these 6 guinea pigs that were going to help cure the plague, he sells out instantly.
Yeah.
So they track him out. So yeah, there's like this lantern that's like apparently lighting the entire house, and Gary Daniels just blows it out. But the lighting really doesn't change at all, and I don't know, like what was he like? Oh, I'll fight them in the dark,
right?
But it really wasn't that dark.
No. Well, and also just before that, right? We get a candidate for world's most dangerous bars.
Oh yeah, the saloon. Yeah,
because
it's Wild West times for some reason, so it's called the saloon.
It's called the saloon. Daniels is there getting like ammo or something from some weapons dealer or something, and
right.
then Wilbur. That's right. His name was Wilbur, and 3 of Genessee's goons show up, and they think he's Oliver, then they realize, he's right. Roland. And of course, Daniels kills all but one of them. He lets the one guy live, and that guy goes and tells
and squeals,
Genesse,
and that's how Roland knows that his brother's been killed. So that's what drives him. Or he's like, where did it happen? So he goes and gets the body.
Yeah.
And apparently at this point, you just bury your dead in your front yard. Because that's where the parents are laid to rest.
Yeah.
So he just digs a hole next to their hole and puts the brother in and gives a stick cross. And it's the best he could do with what he had to work with. So I'll give it to him. I mean, he had to dig that hole pretty quick too.
Yes. Yeah. He works well. He does a good job. He gets it in and out. I guess, when you're that time period, you're used to digging holes, I guess, for dead bodies. And so you just, or he's used to digging holes, period, I guess. I don't know. Maybe plumbing's not good at that time either. So probably anytime you got to go to the bathroom, you got to dig a hole. Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. They didn't have running water, as we will find out a little bit later on.
Right.
But I don't want to spoil that because that's a scene for the ages.
That's quite a scene. Exactly. Actually, we're kind of close to it anyway. But I mean, one other quick aside, actually, that I did think of you recently. I was watching Guardian Angel, the Cynthia Rothrock PM flick.
Yes.
And that's a good candidate for World's Most Dangerous Bar, Dick's Bar, where Rothrock beats up Cole S. McKay and Art Camacho. So, yeah,
I have to give that. I've seen that one many, many years ago. I have to rewatch that.
Yeah, I just watched it recently, and I was like, because I hadn't recognized. Cole S. McKay is like the bartender, and he's like telling her to go talk to somebody. The guy that Lydia Denier had set his crotch on fire in a previous scene.
Naturally,
so he's like limping around, in the because of the crotch area issues, and then it just turns into a bar room, Donnybrook, and she's like throwing Cole S. McKay over the bar, but then also like Art Camacho, who had played somebody else earlier in the movie. He played like a drug dealer counterfeit or somebody earlier in the movie. He's now playing somebody else in just a flannel shirt, just a ruffian at the bar, and she like throws him against the pole. And so, I guess, we were missing Spiro Rosado. Sorry, that was the only one that he needed to be in there for her to beat up as well. Maybe he was, and I just didn't know.
Yeah, I'll have to rewatch that because I need to keep that list updated. I will break this news to you on your program.
Okay, yeah.
There's going to be a brand new edition of World's Most Dangerous in the month of June.
Oh,
on
nice.
bulletproofaction.com, and it is the world's most dangerous buses.
Oh, nice.
That's right. We're moving on this one. We're going mobile.
Wow. I don't want to speculate on what ones could be on it, because I think I find it's better. Because I have a few in my head, right? They just come to head, my mind right away. But I mean,
there's one that's really just you almost have to have.
Right, exactly.
There's one like if I didn't have it, that people would just be like, "We're done with this."
Exactly. Well, that was kind of like when you did the most dangerous bars. It was like, well, you had to have the double dukes, right? Everybody knew that one had to be there. But I was like looking for a few. I was like, there's a few that I need to be, that were on there. They were definitely on there. And it's just like, where are they going to fall on the list? Yeah, and so, so I'm excited for the world's most dangerous bus, because I mean there are a lot of dangerous buses, like and for me, like the most harrowing part of taking a bus here in Philadelphia is whether it's going to show up or not. That's usually the thing I worry about the most. So I've fortunately never had to deal with any of these kinds of things happening on a bus. But it's like, thinking about like today, for example, where I was running some errands, and it's like, man, if my bus was hijacked, or like if superheroes were fighting on the bus or something or whatever, it's just like that just would ruin my day completely.
It really would. I've always remember a story my late uncle told me that apparently the first time I ever got to go on a bus was a very exciting day in my young life. Because I was like, I'm going on a bus. And the way I would just apparently drag out the word bus, I was very excited. I don't know why I was going on a bus, where we were going, but I was going on the bus.
Yeah, I can only imagine what young you would have thought today, like with the kind of the mess that was happening on the bus that I was taking, where it's just like, a lot of people with like walkers and things like that. And, I totally get it, because in Philadelphia, the subway is not conducive to people that need any kind of mobility assistance. But it's like the bus doesn't have a lot of space either for people, because like and so they were just kind of all littered along the, it was and then there was kids that, kids, when kids ride the bus, like kind of older than you were, like, kind of in that like 10 to 12 range. They've got their own ideas about what a bus ride should be as well.
Yeah,
so.
I was probably 3 or 4 when this amazing first bus trip ever happened in my life.
Yes.
I can assure you, after that, I didn't hate being on a bus, but I don't think I will. Well, maybe when I get into my golden years and I take one of those senior bus trips, maybe that'll be very exciting for me. Just, I'll go full circle.
Yeah. I feel like that's got to be kind of an interesting deal. Yeah. It's, you can just sort of, I don't know what the age is. I wonder, like, now with those kind of things, I know we're kind of getting on another tangent here, but like, I think with these sort of these senior citizen idea things, it used to be like 50 was the age for all of those. But now it feels
no, it's way older now.
Right. Yeah. Cause it just seems like, 50 is too young for that kind of thing. And it's like, now it's like 60, I'm like excited to get into my 60s so I can like ride everything for free. I'm almost like, maybe I need to get a fake ID, right, that says I'm 65, like, you were not you don't look 65 at all. It's like, well, I eat a lot of citrus fruit. That's keeps my complexion nice. I don't know.
I'm betting there's a bus trip that will take me to like the Hard Rock Casino right now if I wanted to pretend I was an AARP member. Right. I bet you I can go right now.
Yeah.
And just gamble away and maybe see a show. I know they've got performers out there sometimes.
Yeah.
People from my time. That's why I know it's like it's getting close, because it'd be like Tears for Fears will be there. I'm like, what? Oh yeah. I'd like, what? Where are they gonna be? Oh, the casino.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
Shit.
Yeah. That's you're right. Like that's the thing, because it's like Tears for Fears. Like those guys were young for 85 when they were putting out that stuff, but young for 85 is still like, pushing 60 at this point.
Right.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, like the two guys that are starring in this movie, Daniels is 62, I believe, and Genesse 61, or he's going to be 61. And it seems such a weird thing because this movie was made in 1999, and it's like, it feels weird that two people that were like jumping around and doing karate kicks and stuff like that in 1999 would be in their 60s now. But, or like John Wick, Keanu Reeves, I think was born in 64, 65. It's like, yeah. And yeah, anybody who's making music in the 80s, right, they would have had to have been born in the 50s or 60s too. So it's just like, yeah, it's just, yeah. But I remember my brother-in-law asked me about going to see somebody in concert. I can't remember who it was. And it was up in New England, so I couldn't go. And he's like, yeah, I'm just on a kind of a mission to see them all before they go, if you know what I mean. I was like, okay.
Morbid, but I understand.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, but you're right. Like, yeah, I mean, I feel like that's going to be an interesting thing with the nursing home. Like, because I remember I used to work in kitchens in nursing homes because my mom was an RN and shit. Those were my early jobs as a kid. It was nursing home kitchens, and I remember like they would get these like kind of middle-aged folks with Casio keyboard things that would perform in like the common area. Right. And I'm just like imagining like somebody like who's like like, I guess I don't know what they call it, Gen Alpha, like kids who were born in like the 2010s or whatever, who like get their own version. I guess it wouldn't even be a Casio keyboard, right? It'd be like a computer that would just play music. Right. And just imagining like us sitting in like the common area and hearing like, I don't know, like Pearl Jam or something, like, would they sing it with, it's just like, yeah, I guess,
I always enjoy that meme that goes around where it's like, it should take a shopping mall and turn it into a Gen X nursing home.
Yes.
Because that would be the perfect spot for it. I mean, that's where you'd want to spend your last days.
Yes. Yeah.
It's like you did the height of your youth.
Exactly.
At the mall. Get the Orange Julius out there and go see a movie, and yeah, you just have a good time there.
That's perfect, right? When you lose your teeth, right? The Orange Julius, you bring back the Orange Julius, you could still have a good meal.
Right. Yeah. Vitamin C.
Oh, yeah. The fountain with the sign on it says, fountain out of order, please don't step in the, and you're sitting on those benches. The one thing I would hope that they would give us, if it's going to be like a Gen X one, kind of, I guess I'm on the cusp. I guess I'm like, I was born in 79, so I'm in between the two. But the thing I always remember was the ashtrays in the malls.
Oh, yeah.
Next to the trash cans. And then when you couldn't smoke in the mall anymore, they still had the slot for the ashtray.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like we need those kind of trash cans again. Like I think the mall I had was like these big wooden square type things that were supposed to be. I don't even know what the trend would have been at that time to make that kind of thing. But it was like, yeah, you had the trash slot, and then you had the ashtray slot, and yeah, which doesn't even seem like that's a safe thing either. That you've got the trash can and the ashtray so close together, but I don't know of any people putting them in the wrong slot. So
no, we used to be a proper society back then.
Yes. I remember my mom one time when I had my younger sibling, she was like putting one of my siblings' sneaker on in the stroller, and one of my friend's moms, who's she was friends with my mom, she comes over with this big the cigarette hanging out, and she makes some kind of joke like, hey, you're not supposed to do that in here, and my mom's like, whoa, oh, you're kidding with me, and it's just like, yeah, just smoking near my 2-year-old sibling. And it's like nowadays, like the idea of doing that, it's like, you'd be like running away with the cigarette. You wouldn't have a cigarette anywhere near a 2-year-old, though some places here, South Philly, they don't mind that so much. It's not such a big deal, but they still bring back the old days.
Yeah, it's Selma and Patty over there in Springfield.
Right. Exactly. Right. You still have some of that a little bit there. Yeah. So, now with Cold Harvest, we have the fight scene in the old house and they escape. One of the things you mentioned about, I forgot to mention about the Doom buggy is, I guess because this was made in South Africa, the steering wheel is on the right, which helps Gary Daniels because, he's from England. I'm sure it's probably a difficult thing to have to do that. So it made it easier for him to transition in this movie, I think, to be able to drive on the right like that. Though they don't really have lanes, right? It's like the Doom buggy just kind of scoots around. He calls it his car also. He does call it Doom buggy later, but he calls it his car.
Well, it is his, as far as he's concerned, it's his car, it's his vehicle, it's the love of his life in some ways.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love that dune buggy. That was my favorite GI Joe vehicle. Was the dune buggy gimmick that they had.
Yeah.
That thing would whip around so good. Oh,
Yes. Yeah. God. Yeah. That's right. I forgot about that. That's right. You was that the one that you could flip? You could get to flip. Or it would. Is it the remote control one? Is that what?
no, well, there was a Jeep a remote. This was
Okay.
just a Doom, but it had like the cannon up on the top.
That's
And,
right. Yeah.
it was like one of the faster. Like you could just zip it and it would just fly.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Yeah.
So I believe that's probably at my parents' house too. And Lord even knows what condition that's in.
Yeah. Yeah. All my GI Joes, those also were. Yeah, those, I mean, by the time my dad would have tossed all those out, I imagine like all the rubber bands that connected the torsos.
Yeah, mine, all of them. Yeah, they all rotted out, and I threw them away. And now you can go and get 90,000 of those rubber bands and just repair them. But
exactly. Yeah, I mean,
I try not to think about that either. I just
No.
that's the type of thing that pops into my head at 4 a.m, and then I say. When I'm like, oh, I gotta go to work. I bet you if I had some of those GI Joes, I could just sell them and tell work to go kiss my ass today.
Right, exactly. It's like whenever I see anything about like the Chicago Bears, not even like the '86 Bears, but just Chicago Bears, I think about like the UPCs that I saved to get Refrigerator Perry, and
yeah,
I mean. And it's like it was such a big deal back then that you'd send in the UPCs, they would send you the Refrigerator Perry, and this is the greatest thing ever. You go to recess with your friends, and you're like, I got Refrigerator Perry, and they're like, oh, can I use? No, this might, and then it was almost like I shouldn't have even brought him because now and then 3 years later he was just kind of rotting in a closet or something, and
yeah,
it's like,
and what a brilliant scam by those toy companies. Like, oh, you got to buy 5 figures,
right? Yes.
To get this 6th one for free that we didn't even have to put in a pack. It just comes in a little cardboard box.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Like there's like very little overhead. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Star Wars started it, and GI Joe kept the tradition going.
Yeah, and then He-Man. So He-Man was the most cynical of them, because He-Man was just like these like guys that were born in the 50s who were just like, what would kids like? And it's just like, oh, we'll make a guy who's like Conan the Barbarian, and then how do we make the rest of them? We'll have a fish man, and we'll have a beast guy, and we'll have a and then later they were like a bee. There was one that's a bee, and it's just like we'll have a ninja. Just this, throw all these things together. Like, well, what's the story? I guess we'll make a story. Should we have a cartoon? Yeah, the cartoon will just be an ad for the toys. That's just when there's a new toy, we'll make an episode about it. It's like,
what about Fisto? Who came up with that?
Right, they were just like, oh, let's have who knows? Yeah, they must have seen something where somebody had a really big fist, and they thought
they saw something. All right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, you have to figure too. At that time, there was a lot of different narcotics that were being passed around amongst those guys. Yeah, they were just coming up with stuff that and then I was a little bit on the cusp of Ninja Turtles. I did Ninja Turtles for a little bit, then I aged out. That was about when
Ninja Turtles was where I was pretty much already aged. I would watch the cartoon and I watched the first movie, but the toys, I just was like, no, I'm not collecting toys anymore.
Yeah,
even though I was still collecting wrestling toys, but that was I was like grandfathered into that. So this is just what I do. I mean, I may be waiting for Rick the Model Martel figure right now. I'm not going to say I am or not, but maybe I am.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's good. Oh man, Rick the Model Martel. Yeah.
Oh, one of the all-time best.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, there we go.
Yeah, well, actually, we're right at that scene that you were talking about. Yes,
yeah, because you get in the dune buggy, and then we get a little bit of a chase. But then the dune buggy, there's motorcycle guys,
right.
So they're taking on motorcycle guys, but then they blow up his dune buggy. Yeah. So now he needs a new set of wheels. So we go back to the saloon, and Wilbur, who's like, "Oh, I know a guy who's he's got this best freaking dune buggy this side of the wherever, and but I got to get it for you, but while you're waiting, take the extra room upstairs, and I'll even free of charge send some water up so you can wash." And that allows us And Gary Daniels like, no, I don't need to wash. My stank ass is fine.
Right. Yes.
I'll just watch out this window that when I jump out of, the whole wall's going to shake. But I'm going to watch out this window. You do what you got to do, Barbara Crampton. And then Barbara Crampton proceeds to give herself a horse bath.
Right. And so Mr. Daniels, who is supposed to be Mr. Gentleman, who's going to turn his back and look out the window, notices that, oh, there just happens to be a mirror here. And he's checking her out, and he says, not creepy at all, oh, you've got a beautiful back, you know? And she's like, wait, what? And he's like, well, I haven't talked to a woman in so long, or whatever. It's like, and she's just like, okay, all right, I'll go with it, you know? Because you still look like my husband, and I was physically attracted to him, so I'm going to be okay with it.
Right. I mean, you got to think. You got to think. 2-3 glasses of wine, and she would have just pretended that it was Oliver.
Right. Exactly. Well, you know, it's funny. When I was undergrad, you know, with anthropology, we studied what they call the levirate system, where if the husband, if the husband dies, the wife marries the brother. And because my professor was telling us about it, because she married a guy from Pakistan, and his brother died, and you know, he had other brothers that lived in America as well that were also married, and the mom was like, well, can't somebody marry her? And they were like, well, no, that's not how it works in America. It's not legal. And they're like, well, can't they make an exception because she needs somebody to take care of her, like, you know, financially, or because she couldn't work? And they're like, no, there's no exception. We'll pay to help physically, you know, to take care of her, but like, we're not, you know, you can't marry two people in America. There's no way around that, even if she needs someone to financially take care of her. But it was funny, like, I guess her mother, you know, like, professor's mother-in-law just couldn't understand the concept that like they couldn't make an exception. But it's kind of a similar situation here. I guess maybe Isaac Florentine, because I think the levirate system, the term comes from the Hebrew term, and so I guess it was a practice maybe in ancient Jerusalem as well. So maybe Isaac Florentine was paying homage to that by having this situation where you know, Crampton's husband dies and the brother takes over, and so and I guess that's what they're working towards.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of that does happen in the South, but you know, I don't want to insult any of our listeners south of the Mason-Dixon line. But if it was going to happen here in modern day USA, I'd put my money there.
I mean, not to cast aspersions as well, south of the Mason-Dixon line, but I think just from Jerry Springer, right? Didn't they have a term called the Springer Triangle that was like an area that was like, I think like southern Illinois over to like Kentucky and up to like maybe West Virginia or something like that, maybe even southern Ohio, I think something like. But there was like an area where they got most of their guests from, and that was a common one, I think, right? Brothers, you know, and the wife with both brothers or something like that. So. So you know, if anything, Jerry Springer reinforced that idea that could be a place where that kind of thing would happen.
Yeah, I lived in southern Ohio for a few years, so I may or may not be able to confirm that that Springer Triangle may have covered that portion of the state.
May have touched a little bit, yeah. So it's funny here in Philadelphia, when I listen to podcasts that have commercials, there's a whole Cincinnati tourism commercial that they do.
Oh yeah,
yeah. And I've been to Cincinnati one time.
Come get the Skyline chili,
right? No, they don't talk about any of that. It's like this like sort of like this like drum and bass music, and then this announcer who was like talking about like how, you know, there's great bourbon here, and you know, like the slogan is. What is it? Oh, culturally rich without any kitsch. That's the slogan they use.
Gotcha.
They call it the Cincy region, actually. So I guess because you can go to northern Kentucky, I guess, right?
Yes.
As well.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I went there. So the one time I went there, I'll you know, again, kind of maybe casting aspersions on the South. My friends, one was he had his master's in animal science, I think, or something like that. And the other was an environmental scientist. They had to go to the Creation Museum in Kentucky, and so we flew in, and so they had to bring me along as well. So I had to go into it. So that was we flew into Cincinnati, or we flew into Dayton. Actually, my friend and I, we flew into Dayton and drove there. And my other friend flew into the Cincinnati airport. So we stayed in Kentucky, and so that's my one time going to the Cincy region.
Yeah, I was there. I never made it to the Creation Museum, unfortunately.
You didn't get to ride the Triceratops.
I did not. I didn't even go to like the fancy Justice League looking art museum. I should have. I passed by it sometimes, but I didn't go inside.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to make a trip back there at some point because I have to see a Reds game in their park. So
I did go to a Reds game.
Yeah. Now, was it the original?
I think I went to two. I think I went to two Reds games. The Great American Ballpark.
Yeah. Which I discovered. I didn't know that Great America or Great American is an insurance company. That they don't just call it the Great American Ballpark.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not like the Great American Bash.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. No. I guess his own insurance company. I guess I would have thought that would have been you couldn't copyright Great American, but I guess if it's insurance, you can. I guess I don't know. So you can still be the Great American Bash, and people. Right. It doesn't have to necessarily be associated with the insurance company. I guess I don't know.
Correct.
Yeah, but yeah. So we've got our situation here where it's possible that she might be swapping one brother for another. But that's just a bit of a tease right now because we found out that this guy who who's like the arms dealer guy, he didn't really have any buggy in mind for Mr. Daniels. No, he was just stalling for time so he could get his ne'er-do-wells in because he wants to bring in Daniels himself to kind of make the money. But at the same time, little Ray, he's talking to T-Bone. We forgot to mention that his right-hand man is T-Bone.
Oh, yes, T-Bone.
Yeah, T-Bone just wants to kill everybody, and Genesse has to tell him to, little Ray has to tell him to stop. But T-Bone and the guy who's working with them to track Barbara Crampton, they let Genesse or little Ray know that, oh, yeah, she's been sitting in the same place for a half an hour now. And he's like, well, if she's been sitting there all that time, why aren't we there to get her? Right. Like, what are we doing?
Great question, little Ray. That's how you're the boss.
Exactly. He thinks of the details that nobody else does. So they go as well. And we got ourselves a bit of a collision course to wackiness kind of thing. And we've got two sets of baddies, and Daniels, he wants to get the drop on the one set of baddies, but then doesn't realize that Genessee's coming to get the drop on him. Which is what happens. Fortunately, Barbara Crampton is smarter than all of them, and she gets a gun, and she goes and hides out in one of the Women of the Night's room. So she's hanging out in there. So while they're doing the sweep, that lady of the night, she says, no, there's nobody in here. And then for her trouble, Barbara Crampton punches her, knocks her out. I don't know why she had to do that, but hey, it's what happens. But now Daniels is like, he's kind of chained to this thing. So I guess these movies had to have this sort of this like shirtless male torture sequence. Bridge of Dragons kind of has it, but there's no torture involved with it. But they still have enough of that scene. For whatever reason, these movies needed to have it. And so we're getting it here. Daniels is like, he's chained to like a chain link fence or something like that with razor wire behind him. So every time Genesse kicks him, he gets his back cut by the razor wire.
Nasty.
Yeah. So then Genesse steps away for a minute to go look for something or do something, whatever he's going to do. And he tells his buddies, yeah, you keep an eye on him, which turns out Crampton's in the area, and she starts shooting people. She helps free Daniels, and they escape. And so that's it. They're on the run again. And they go to like this group of, this kind of like post-apocalyptic thing where you get this sort of like this group of people that are very post-apocalyptic-y and very nefarious looking, and so they go through there. And Daniels tells Barbara Crampton, he says, "Don't look scared, otherwise they'll be fine." Because they're the scavengers. That's what they're called, the scavengers. And so they're all kind of like surrounding them. And he's like, "Don't look scared." It's like, I don't know if that's how that works. Like, I don't know if it's like, oh, we're gonna beat you up, but you don't look scared, so we'll let you through. But fortunately, the elder shows up, and Daniel's able to talk him off the ledge. But the funny thing is, the elder says, "Well, you can pass, Mr. Daniels, but your lady friend here, she's got to stay because we need somebody to tend
nurse
to our
the sick." Yeah,
which is very, very sexist.
Right.
You don't have.
You're a lady. You're a nurse.
Yeah.
Right.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So one of my friends was a nurse. He made very good money. He was my roommate in the 2000s, living in Portland, Maine, and he was, he made great money working overnight shifts as a nurse. So it's not inconceivable that that one of the many men that were there could have done the nursing job. But anyway,
Exactly.
they're going to have her do
And
it.
yeah, well, if there's been are they just letting these people just rot, or what's going on over there, Elder?
Right, exactly. Right. Yeah. Because you're not, you have a shortage here. And I guess that's the other thing too, right? The healthcare industry, maybe that's something that doesn't change with the apocalypse, that there's always short staff. Right?
It's just as shitty then as it is now.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. But so they're like, so Daniels was like, well, no, I'm not leaving without her. I'd rather die here than leave without her. And the guy's like, well,
that's a big moment too, because, that's like a change for him. He's obviously kind of been his own a loner,
right?
And he left his family, and he let his brother kind of be without him for all those years after he lost. He already lost his parents. Now he lost his brother. So this is like a real turnaround, a real moment.
Yeah.
For Roland.
Yes. Yeah. He's and this impresses the Elder, and he's like, okay, actually, you both can pass. That's fine. You both get to pass. And,
I think it impressed Barbara Crampton too. I think she got another tingle.
Yes. Yeah. She's now like, okay, he's not so bad after all. Yeah.
Right. Because at first she's like, well, at least he looks like my husband.
Right.
And now it's like, now he's kind of acting a little bit more like my husband would have acted. And it's okay, this could work.
Right. The last hurdle is, does he like pastrami sandwiches, which we never get answered. We never know. Spoiler alert. Yeah. But it seems like she overlooks that as we get towards the end. Yeah. So they escape to the other side, where they get sort of ambushed by a whole bunch of military folk. And we find out that, like, oh, hey, they run a scan over Barbara Crampton and say, oh, you've got this baby in you that has the genes. Again, the twin brother that has all the same genes as the other guy. Maybe because they didn't scan him, they didn't know. I don't know, but they didn't think that he'd be have all the genes. But anyway, they say, okay, we're going to let her go in a helicopter, and she's like, well, why don't you come with me, Roland? And he's like, no, I've got some business to take care of.
I gotta go kill little Ray.
Exactly. Now, for whatever reason, these military folks, they leave in the helicopter and don't think like, oh, maybe we shouldn't fly over the little Ray area, because he's got a lot of weapons, and we should probably know that he's got a lot of weapons, but they don't. And so they get shot down. Fortunately, he only shoots the tail rotor, so we don't get an actual exploding helicopter. So, Will, if you're listening, but you would have already known this. I'm sure Will's seen this before and knew there wasn't an exploding helicopter. So, did you ever have that happen where you watch a movie that has an exploding helicopter and you're like, I wonder if Will knows this? And you go on the letterbox and it's already been there. It's already
all the time. Sometimes I'll look. Sometimes I'm just lazy and I just send him a message and I'm like, hey, did you know about this one? He's like, oh yeah, I've got that.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So.
Sometimes I will look because I'm like, I don't want to bother the man, but I'm like, you know what? Some days I'm like, I don't care if I'm bothering him. Right. Sorry, Will, you're getting a message from me, and I'm gonna say, hey, did you know about this? Okay, but I gotta wonder this about Will.
Yeah,
like that scene comes up and he's sitting there watching it.
Yeah.
Is he torn? Because this is a pregnant woman on board this helicopter who could save humanity as we know it. But he's like, oh, I hope nothing bad happens to her. Or is he like, oh, I hope they blow this fucking helicopter up? What is going through Will's head at that time? I probably should ask him this question.
Yeah, because
I know when I'm counting bastards, I'm just waiting for him to say it. I'm like, ooh, this is. Sometimes I'm like, come on, they're like, they call him a fool or something. No, you could have easily just called that man a bastard, you bastard.
Yes, yeah. Well, because the other thing too is, one, in movies like this, it doesn't seem to matter that much if a woman's pregnant, right? She gets jostled all over the place, falls all over, all kinds of things happen. So it's very possible they could do like a Land of the Free kind of thing, right? Where William Shatner falls out of the helicopter. Right. And then they blow the helicopter up with, I was going to say Mac from Night Court, as I said, right? blowing him. You mentioned that we always called him Mac from night because I can't remember his name. It's like Max
Charles Robinson.
Charles Robinson. Yeah, why would I think Max? I keep wanting to call him Max Gale, and that's the guy from Barney Miller, I think.
Right. He's been in some action movies himself.
Right. I remember DC.
He was in Street Crimes with Mr. Michael Worth.
That's
PM
right.
Entertainment.
That's right. Yeah. So
Dennis Farina. Come on now.
Yeah, that's the problem. Is that I keep wanting to call him Max Gale when I know that's not his name. So I just settle on Mac from Night Court. That's the best I could do. But yeah, so he blows up, right? Because a guy who's further down the cast on Night Court can be blown up, but you can't blow up William Shatner. You gotta have the end fight. So it is possible she could have been deposited from the helicopter and then it blew up. But they don't do that here. And yeah, it's funny because I remember I had Will on for Ring of Fire 3. And, they had the first helicopter explosion right at the very beginning, where, Wilson's hanging off the roof of a hospital and he's like, there's an elderly man with an Uzi firing at him and he blows the guy up with a few pistol blasts. And then later another helicopter shows up and I said, hey, did you think that one might blow up too? And he's like, no, I just knew. He's like, don't ask me how I knew, but I just knew that one wasn't going to blow up.
You get a sense for it, I would imagine.
Yeah, at this stage.
He's like radar on MASH.
Yes, right. Remember those seasons after Burkhoff was like, I can't be radar anymore, and so it was like they had to do the whole growing pains part for Klinger to get the hang of doing that, and then eventually he picked it up and was able to do it. So poor Burkhoff, he didn't really didn't work out the way he was hoping. He thought the show won't last without me, and I was like, well, no, Klinger was able to do it eventually.
Mm-hmm.
I think those were the Toledo Mudhens jersey days because his his kids didn't like the fact that he wore dresses. I guess they got made fun of at school, so he was like, I can't wear dresses anymore. They're like, I guess pull out the Toledo Mudhens jersey. And so I actually have the baseball cap. They sold a version of the cap that is the one from MASH. So I have that. I told my wife, I was like, that means I got to go to a Toledo Mudheads game at some point to be able to wear the hat there. She was like, all right.
Do you have a Mel Sharples short order cook hat though?
No, I need to get that one. Yes. Save this for the kid. Yeah. So people listening to Alice, Mel with his hat. The last episode, Vera,
touching moment.
Vera said she was going to name their first son after Mel, and so Mel takes his short order cook hat off and says, save this for the kid or give this to the kid, and it's just the eyes misstep a little bit.
The close sign is up.
Yeah, boy. Yeah,
my tear ducts were open, I'll tell you what.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, like, with prestige TV, it's always about how do you do the finale, how do you end a show, but there's something about how they did it in the 80s for those shows that were made in the 70s and lasted a little bit longer than they probably should have, that the cast probably cared more about it than we did because they had been working on the show for 20 years or whatever it was, 10 years or however many
20. Oh my god.
No.
20 years of Alice. What are you trying to do to the world?
What was that? Gunsmoke. I found out that one did 20 years. That one
Gunsmoke,
yeah, but that's right. Alice was like a good 8 or 9 though, wasn't it?
It went a while.
Yeah, it lasted.
It lasted into the breakdancing era. I know that.
Right, exactly. Yes. Well, it also lasted in the ATM era, right? Because Mel.
True. Yeah, that's a classic.
Yes. Yeah. God. Yeah. So those finales for people out there, and not all of them got to have a finale too. That's the other thing. Is that,
like Jefferson's never got to have a finale.
No. Sometimes they just they ended the season and then they were told, you're not getting another season, and it's like, oh, okay. I guess Alice
Sanford and Son really didn't have. I mean, they kind of knew, but they didn't. It wasn't really.
Yeah.
It just kind of happened. It ended on a good way, but it didn't end. So.
Yeah. Well, like Star Trek, they did a last episode, but then it didn't air for months after, because I think it was supposed to air it just happened to be when the Kennedy assassination was or something like that. That was it caused it to be post. It was you had one episode. It was an episode. Then it's however many months later, they're like, oh, let's just play this last episode of Star Trek here. So that was the one. Oh, go ahead. Yeah,
I would say they would do stuff it's oh well, we're tired of this, but it would hit summer and be like, well, instead of reruns, don't we have a couple of those episodes that we never aired? Just throw that. Like, and who's gonna know? And you at this point, you're out of the loop on these. They're just filling air. Like this, we can't have dead air. Right. And we've already shown that episode with the ATM and Mel Sharples 4 times. So throw on that other thing that we tried.
Yes. Well, like my wife and I were watching the first season of Bob Newhart, and somewhere in the middle of it, they just put in the unaired pilot for the first. So like they had a version of the pilot that where like, you know, Suzanne Plachette had longer hair and they wanted to have a baby. They had like this really gaudy wallpaper. The woman that was a neighbor, her husband was more involved. It was like all this kind of stuff that was happening. And like the house doesn't look the same. All of it's weird. And it was like a pilot that they decided not to go with. They did a different pilot, but they just decided like for the 8th episode of the first season, let's just plunk this episode in here. And it's just like the beats are off from the you know, from a comedic standpoint. All of it's just really weird. And but it was just like that's how they did TV back then. They were just like, right. You know, they weren't worried about like canon or storylines, because it wasn't like Bob Newhart had like a storyline that was going through the whole thread, right. You know. So yeah, but right. it just all felt off. But I guess it's like one of those things. If you're watching it week to week, you probably didn't notice it as much.
I've kind of been seeing that even with I've been watching 21 Jump Street from the beginning, which it was one of those ones I would pop in here and there. Never really was a regular viewer. And yet it's interesting that sometimes things do carry, like they'll reference things from the past, and other times it just happens and then you just move on and it's like nothing ever happened before. Right. And that's how TV was, though. It was not, even though it was episodic, it wasn't episodic a lot of time.
Yeah. Well, it is. I think Ty talks about like the later seasons of 21 Jump Street where it's like, oh, you know, Johnny Depp's got to go, he's got to be in court. You know, and that's how they explain the fact that he was never on any of those episodes. You know? Yeah,
I've just wrapped up season 3, so I know we're getting close to the where Johnny Depp starts dipping out more and more, and then I know by the end he's like completely replaced and not even in there.
Yeah, God, good old 21 Jump Street.
I think Holly Robinson, is she the only one who makes it the whole way through?
I think you're right.
I think she's the only one, and even Captain Fuller wasn't there the first couple episodes, so
yeah,
I think it's just her by the end.
Yeah, it's funny how TV shows were like that. Like, I mean, obviously, like something like Alice, you know, Linda Lavin, that was like her baby, so of course she was going to stick it out through the whole thing. But yeah, you have these shows where like you have these some characters, you know, some actors that just sort of come and go throughout the run, and then you have other ones that are just always there. And it's just, you know, it's almost like Tim Meadows with those, you know, Saturday Night Live, where like people that were cast members when he was a cast member came on as guests, and they were like, "Oh, hey, are you a guest tonight too?" And he's like, "No, I'm still a cast member." You know, oh boy, yeah. It's you know, again, it's one of those things with TV that like now it's just all Law and Order and CSI, and those are the you know, it's like you have to go to like MeTV or something like that to get that. But there was a time when, you know, shows like this were on a lot more, and yeah, you know, I guess the other thing too, I remember in the 80s when I would watch some of those shows, I just kind of just accepted them, you know, and then you kind of go back to and you're just like, wow, they really did that on those shows.
And it's like you could miss an episode, but then catch it in the rerun, and you wouldn't feel like, oh, this is out of place from what I watched last week, because it was, again, they were all pretty much standalone. This happens, yeah.
Well, and the other thing too is that like local TV channels wouldn't play all the episodes. Like I think like part of the reason why people think that Happy Days ended around the time of the jumping of the shark was because those later seasons where, like, you know, Fonzie was dating Linda Pearl and she had a kid, or like, you know, Robert McGinley was on, you know, doing whatever Robert McGinley does and all that kind of stuff. Like local channels didn't air that stuff. They were just kind of like, once Ron Howard was done, they kind of started back at the beginning again and started, you know, playing them again. And so, you know, like MeTV, I remember my wife and I were watching on MeTV and we're like, wow, we forgot how many of these like post Ron Howard episodes there were, where like Fonzie as a teacher and stuff like that. And just, you know,
I have no recollection of that at all.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, I mean,
if you took me on the stand right now, I would be like, no, right. That never happened. Right. You're lying. It's in open court. How dare you?
Right. Yeah. I mean, because I guess the show was still so popular. It was still like the #1 show on TV. So it was like, yeah, what are we going to do with the Fonz? Well, we'll make him a teacher. well, doesn't he have to have like a degree or something? No, he can just be a teacher. He's the Fonz. He could just, sit on a desk and
School
teach.
of Hard Knocks,
Right,
bastards.
exactly. Yes, and he would have his leather jacket on while Robert, like John McGinley, he would have his like, the tweed coat and stuff like that because he was like a teacher. He was more teachery, I guess.
Did he have the shoulder pads?
Yeah, he did.
Elbow pads, I mean.
Yeah, the whole thing. Yeah, because you got McGinley. You got to, he was that guy that was like, oh, what are we going to do? Everybody else doesn't want to be on Happy Days anymore. We need more people in our cast. I mean, Tom Bosley stuck around the whole time, which was weird too, because it was like he was like still trying to be fatherly to the Fonz, and it's like the Fonz is in his 30s now. It's Yeah, but I think that's what it is. I think local channels were just like, well, we're not airing Fonzie as a teacher. Like that's just like nobody wants to watch that. Oh, yeah, but now it's like like Me TV, they feel like they have to air everything. So
right.
It's,
they're preserving history.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a kind of crazy times with stuff like that. It is nice that we have Me TV, that we have stuff like that. But it was kind of more fun to just be like, oh, it's like 6 o'clock at night, I'm gonna throw on something, Barney Miller or something like that.
Right.
Well, we're close to the end here on Cold Harvest. We're at they've shot down the helicopter. They've captured Barbara Crampton because I guess we couldn't do when they separate at the helicopter, it couldn't just be that she goes.
Right. Yeah.
Right. It's like
it had been a minute. It'd been a minute since I saw. I'm like, okay, something has to happen, but they can't blow up this helicopter.
Right.
She'll die.
Right.
So, but I'm like, she can't just not be a part of the end. Like, okay, and she went back home to her planet, and everything's fine. No. So yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, they blow it up enough that she doesn't die, and then of course we get what we paid for.
Yeah.
Or in your case, what you sat through commercials for.
Right, exactly. Yes.
We get Genesse versus Daniels.
Yes. And this is where I think where Isaac Florentine makes his money. Is that yes, we get a lot of sound effects for this, and he kind of goes with a little bit of like John Woo-ish, with the shooting at the wall and stuff like that, where they're trying to shoot each other through the wall. We get some old Kung Fu, old Hong Kong stuff. But he also kind of infuses a little bit more of his own, martial arts, understanding, stuff like that. And the two of them are just really great. They're both really fantastic martial artists. And so, like you said, it's a kind of fight scene that pays off.
Yes. Yeah. And even just the beginning where they're like on each side of that wall, that's such a great shot. And they're trash talking a bit. And it's worth it. It makes it worth it. And then of course you get the false finish, which is as clear as a fall. Like it's like, okay, this fight is not over. Right. That's not how Genessee's going out.
No, because Daniels does get the better of him. There's like a big jump kick scene where they jump kick at each other, and Daniels kicks him and knocks him out, and he's laying on the ground. And then T-Bone has decided he doesn't want to wait around anymore for Genesse to get back. He's the one who's holding Barbara Crampton hostage. Fortunately, she sees one of Genessee's cigarettes. So Genessee's been smoking cigarettes with a cigarette holder the entire time. And again, he doesn't really know how to hold a cigarette at all. He's just like, through different fingers. He's, in the index finger and the thumb, the pinch method, or the, all kinds of different things.
Do you think that was like his idea?
I do.
Like, I'm going to have a cigarette holder and I'm going to be all awkward about it.
Right. Yes.
It's that's how Little Ray would be. I feel like that's how Little Ray would. Are you okay with that, Isaac? And he was like too busy getting somebody on a wire. Right. He's like, yeah, that's fucking fine. Do what you want.
Yes. Right. Because he wanted to be as maniacal as possible. I was trying to think, because 1999, this would have been after Broken Arrow, where Travolta did stuff like that with his cigarettes, right?
Yeah, I would believe. Yeah. It should have been.
Yeah, I think I always tell this story. I used to listen to a podcast that had Chris Long, Howie Long's son, on it.
Okay,
and he was talking about how he met Christian Slater, and right, because it's Broken Arrow, right, where Christian Slater kills
Christian Slater. Yep.
Yeah, and he's like, yeah, you killed my dad. And Christian Slater's like, I don't know what to say to that. I don't know what to. So, and I can imagine as a kid, that's going to be an interesting thing to see your dad in a movie. getting killed by Christian Slater. I guess, not, I don't even know where I'd put that, as far as it moments, I guess if your dad's Howie Long, it's a little bit different, but.
Oh yeah, life would be a lot different if my dad was Howie Long.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So getting killed by Christian Slater would be the least of the yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. And I mean, imagine the thing right now is you'd be awash in Skechers, which, you never have to worry about paying for shoes, which is
and I love Skechers too. I'll tell you what, to have them free.
Oh yeah.
They're the most comfortable shoe. I can't. That's another part where I'm like, I'm getting old because I'd buy like Nikes and it'd be like my feet would just hurt. I'm like, why am I spending this? I'm just gonna buy something that is comfortable. And you just forget about, like, I don't care if these are cool or not.
Yeah,
I guess they have their place in the world now, but I think when I first started getting them, I was like, these are probably for old people, but I don't care.
Yeah,
because I don't want to be in pain when I'm walking.
Exactly. Yeah, that and baggy everything. My t-shirts, I got to at least get them a size bigger than jeans. Like fortunately now they have more of the stretch kind of things. So you can get jeans.
Oh yeah,
all of that stuff. It's just it's all about comfort. It's all about.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Science.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Yeah, it's one of those things. I guess. Yeah, thinking about our parents. In the in the 80s and 90s, where it was like they didn't really make clothes like that. That's why our grandparents, they'd have the cabana wear or whatever that stuff was, with the green pants and stuff like that you'd go to Florida and everybody had that stuff. I guess it's like they couldn't get on a pair of jeans that because all the jeans back then were like Jordache or whatever, they're painted on. It's like if you're 65 years old, you don't want painted on Jordache. You want give me these god awful green polyester pants here with the Velcro shoes. This is perfect. And now we've got Skechers. We don't need the Velcro shoes.
No, we don't need it. Yeah, you don't even have to bend down.
Right. Yeah.
Just slip them in, slip them out.
Right.
Yeah, I just remember my grandfather when he would wear jeans, and he'd have to have the suspenders to go with it. Because he probably wasn't gonna go buy new jeans, and you didn't want them too tight. They were probably a little bit too loose. They didn't, like that. The stretchy ones kind of more conform where they need to, and leave some room where they need to.
Right.
But he just had good old fashioned Wranglers, probably. I don't know, maybe Lee jeans. I don't know what the hell he was wearing, but
and all those brands now they make the stretchy kind of stuff.
Those suspenders.
I
wonder, I'm like, am I going to get to the point where I'm wearing suspenders? I don't know.
I don't think you have to now. I think again,
but I don't. Yeah,
technology has saved us from that indignity.
Right.
So, don't have to worry about that now. Yeah,
you gotta take them. I mean, you gotta either unclip them or you gotta take. You gotta take a show. No. It's
not a fun thing. It's not. It's a mess. Yeah. I guess that's probably why they had to start coming with like trap doors for like the tighty whitey, because it's like people were like, I don't want to have to undo all of my suspenders, and it's like, well, no,
right.
Here's the trap door for that. Yeah. So
everything just comes out the back.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Well, no. So we're at. So T-Bone has now he's captured. So he's got Barbara Crampton. She has palmed, I guess. Right. She's holding his cigarette, and T-Bone doesn't really seem to notice that because T-Bone's a little bit off. Right. He doesn't. He's a character actor who does. I think he does mostly South Africa movies. But
I was gonna say when I saw him, I'm like, oh, was this in Bulgaria? Yeah,
right. That's what I thought.
That's where U.S. SEALs 2 was.
Yeah.
I'm like, but wait a minute, this guy is like Mr. South. He's in all the like South Africa new image movies. So I'm like, they must have shot this in South Africa.
Right.
He's the dead giveaway.
Right. Exactly.
Because he was in all. I mean, he was like in so many that new image, but even like Tarzan and the Lost City, he's in there, and so like he was just one of those guys like what Jim Gaines in the Philippines. Like he's like certain people. To get the tax credit, you also have to hire like Tony Caprari or whatever this guy's name is.
Right. Tony, yes. Yeah, exactly. I mean, he is. I mean, you're exactly. He's the Jim Gaines of like new image South Africa. Yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
he was in the Shark Attack movie.
Yep.
The first. Actually, he did, the same year he did this, he did the Casper Van Dien Shark Attack movie, which he was in Operation Delta Force 5, Random Fire. Is that the one that was Will was saying one of them doesn't have an exploding helicopter? And
That might be the one. I don't
yeah,
know.
but
I know Matt covers those for our site, and he's only up to 4, so we'll have to
Okay.
wait till he gets to 5
we'll
to
see what 5 is. But
confirm.
yeah, he can look for Tony Capari because that's the only one it looks like that Capari did. He was also in Kickboxer 5, The Redemption, which that's in South Africa.
Classic South African movie right
Yeah.
there. God damn, is it?
Oh, with James Ryan, I love the idea. I mean, now I mean, it would be kind of a funny story actually for a wrestling movie if you did like a like a like where like a James Ryan type has his own wrestling organization.
Oh yeah.
And like you have like some big star, Roman Reigns is playing somebody else or somebody like that, John Cena is playing somebody else. And it's like James Ryan, if they don't join his wrestling organization, he kills them, because I love the idea of that. If you don't join my kickboxing organization, I'll kill you.
He's also in Cyborg Cop 3.
Right. Yes. Right.
Which I think takes place in like Iowa or something.
It does, yes.
And then you see like palm trees at some point.
Yes.
And you think, I don't think I've ever seen those in Iowa.
Right. The only thing that makes it Iowa is the license plates. That's it.
Correct.
Yeah,
right.
That's the only reason. Yeah, it's another Genesse as well, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Zags, they team up.
That's right.
That's what I think I used for when I did the United States of Action. I was so happy. I'm like, oh,
right.
Iowa. Exactly. I don't care if it's not really Iowa. They're saying it's Iowa. And how many freaking movies are set in Iowa?
Right.
Not that many. I got my Iowa, thank God. Yeah,
that was, I think, the rule. Because I had like a 50 states of DTV, and I gave up, I think, somewhere midway. I got like 25 states, but I believe CyberCop 3 was my Iowa as well.
It had to be. Because what else is, I mean, there's probably some. Is that where Children of the Corn takes place? No, I don't know.
It could. Oh, doesn't Made Men, the Belushi movie with Timothy Dalton? I think that might take place in Iowa because it's almost like they come from Chicago and end up in Iowa.
Not too far off. Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen that one.
Yeah, I can't remember. Just because I remember there being corn in that, so that's it's like
right.
If there's corn, it feels like there's Iowa. Exactly.
It's got to be Iowa or Nebraska. It's one of the two.
Right. Exactly. God, us Americans and our corn. So it goes back to Doritos, right? Somebody's got to grow that Doritos. Yeah. Which I think they probably use corn in the cheese stuff as well. I think there's probably corn in like every bit of Doritos. The bag probably made out of corn.
The husks, yeah, why not? It's better than plastic. Come on now. We should be making husk bags.
Right, we should. Exactly.
We just recycle. You just throw them out in the garden and they compost.
Yeah, beautiful. I think, didn't Sun Chips have a compostable bag for a little while?
That would make sense because that was their whole gimmick, that they were healthy and for you and the environment.
Yeah. Good old Sun Chips. I remember a friend of mine had Sun Chips and he put cheese with the sprayable cheese on them, so it kind of defeated the purpose of them.
Right.
Yeah,
I was gonna say, good for him though. That's the type of thing I would probably do.
Yeah, it kind of it's how you make it better. It's like,
oh, it's very healthy. Let me just dip it in some cheese.
Exactly.
Not even real cheese, just fake processed cheese. Please.
Yeah. And actually, think about the Sun Chips because of the ridges. It's perfect because you can just kind of put it within the ridges.
That's like when you get the wavy potato chips for your French onion dip.
Yeah, it's a perfect
grooves
vessel.
Catch more. Yeah.
See, they just know how to engineer snack food so that we can maximize it.
Right. Yeah. And now they're making stretchy pants, so if we maximize too much,
right, and
we don't have to go buy an entire new wardrobe right away. I mean, after a while, that stretch is going to give out. But you have a little bit more wiggle room than you did 10, 20 years ago.
Right. Plus sneakers that you don't have to.
Right. I'm too fat to bend over. It doesn't matter. I could just slip them in, slip them off.
Or too bloated from, all the Doritos and stuff. Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
You can still get home without, if you're at a friend's house or something. Yeah. So, now I guess I'm trying to think. So we're at the end here where, so Crampton has the cigarette, and when Daniels confronts him. He's got his gun to Crampton's head. So that's, it's your classic hostage situation. But because she stole the cigarette, she puts it out on his hand. And then this is something that I would not have seen coming. But I guess because the movie is called Cold Harvest, we needed a harvest kind of death for somebody here.
Oh, yeah, we did.
So Daniels has a pitchfork that's what he's using to confront Tony Capari. And so once Crampton burns his hand, the opening is there. And before Capari can get his gun trained on Daniels, Daniels throws the pitchfork and plants him right, plants him up against the wall. Daniels has been painting walls all movie, right? He's just been shooting guys and blood's going on the walls everywhere. And so this is, the perfect painting here, because there's actually a painting behind him that's just covered in Tony Capari's blood after the pitchfork incident.
Beautiful. That was a nice death.
Yeah. Yeah, so this gives us our final, because as you said, right, this can't be the end for Genesse. So they confront each other again, and Genesse says, well, why don't we do, our old, our thing that we did before. So, it takes forever for Genesse because there's a gun at his feet. It takes him forever to slide that gun with his foot in front of him. So they're really trying to ratchet up the tension. This whole scene, I think, kind of takes forever, even though we know where it's going to go. It's quite a bit of setup here for this final shootout that really is just, who's going to put the bullet in fast first, who's going to get the shot off, who's going to, do it. And we kind of know where we're going here, right? Genesse obviously shoots him. That's the end of the movie. He wins. The movie's over, and that's it. He kills Crampton. Nobody gets the plague. But actually, no, that's actually not what happened, right? Daniels plugs him between the eyes, and it's kind of an interesting death, right? Where he gets, Daniels gets the shot off. He gets him between the eyes, and that's it. He just kind of falls to the ground there.
Yeah, the only other way they could have ended it is if Crampton just shot the motherfucker.
Yeah.
Like, she's like, this game is stupid. Right. And while they're like fumbling around with it, she just somehow had a gun and just blows him away.
Right. She's got T-Bone's gun, She's just like, boom, that's it. That's how we're ending this. Yeah. Kind of going back to Indiana Jones, right? Where the guy's got the whip and all this stuff. Or not the whip, the knives.
Yeah. He's got the sword. Yeah.
Yeah. And
swordsman. Yep.
Yeah. Just shoots him. Yeah. But, so that's it. So then we get, we I guess for whatever reason, Isaac Florentine, whoever wrote this movie, they had this idea that the whole dust covering the earth was an unresolved thing as well. That apparently we needed resolution on the comet dust and all of that. Because for whatever reason, when they go back outside and they meet the scavengers and say, hey, we killed little Ray, that's all done. Daniels and Crampton are sitting there, and suddenly things are starting to get lighter. And the sun rises. And they kind of just look there. They don't really even do a good job selling this, right? This is not Nicolas Cage and National Treasure saying, we got to steal the Declaration of Independence, I try to think, Jonathan Majors and Loki being like, I'm a scientist from the 31st century. It's like nobody's trying to sell anything here. They're just sitting there like, okay, yeah. When is he going to say cut? How long do we have to keep this look on our face until he says cut? But that's what happens. Apparently the dust has settled, as it were, and now the sun is back up.
Or unsettled. I think it's settled for too long.
That's a good point.
Maybe somebody made a big fan and shot it up. And I don't know what's going on.
The helicopter, right? Maybe the helicopter.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Had an unexpected effect, but because when he shoots the rotor, it's kind of spinning out of control. So maybe by spinning out of control like that, it whirled up the dust and yeah. I don't know. But that's our movie. That's we've kind of made it to the end. But again, like you said, throughout the movie we get great martial arts sequences, especially from Daniels, and the payoff is there. I think Isaac Florentine can do whatever he wants as long as there's a good fight scene between Genesse and Daniels, which I think we get there.
Yeah, it was that fight, and it was Genesse he was so good as a bad guy.
Yeah.
Maybe it was his ridiculous smoking. I don't know what it was, but I was like, wow, he's really good. He has like personality and, range to his, he wasn't just monotone, he seemed like he was that bad. Not like he wasn't like I'm playing a bad guy. He just felt like he was a bad guy. He does a great job. And again, it made me the Genesse fan that I am today.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. Because, again, going back to Bridge of Dragons, which comes out that same year, Cary Tagawa, we expect to be a good baddie. Yeah, it's just
right.
Just take it for granted. Whereas, like you said, Genesse, we don't expect him to be a baddie on par with Tagawa in these kinds of movies, but he really is.
Yeah, he's definitely one of those guys who could play both sides. And that may have hurt him too, as far as because you don't know where to put him.
Yeah.
Where it's like Jean-Claude Van Damme, he's the hero.
Yeah.
But even Gary Daniels has a few heel roles in there too, and maybe that's something.
Well, because he's doing it more now. He was the heel in The Gardener.
Oh, yeah. Right.
It seems to be a bigger thing for him. Those Christian movies he did, I think he's the heel in those ones.
Is he Satan?
No, he's not Satan, unfortunately. I think Eric Roberts is technically. I don't know if Eric Roberts is or is like. I only saw one of them. I saw the Mark, and I was like kind of like I reviewed it because I was like I got to review all of Daniel's movies, and now I'm at a point now where it's like I've got the other two to go, and I'm kind of way. I was going to do one of them for his birthday. I think I missed his birthday, but I probably could do a belated birthday with the other one. But yeah, it's like him and Eric Roberts just sort of being. Eric Roberts and Gary Daniels, and then Craig Sheffer is the hero. But all he does is kind of like sneer and like say tough guy kind of things. He's like not as much fun as he is in like what was the I can't think of the Seagal movie that he did that where Seagal is essentially the Punisher.
Oh boy,
yeah, I can't remember. It was a more recent Seagal movie, but yeah, now I can't think of it. But I
don't know if I've ever seen that. I'm trying to think. Craig Sheffer and.
Yes, it was what was it like something? Was it something gun or something? I can't believe I can't think of the name of this. And people are listening to this right now saying, like yelling out the title. They're
angry.
Yeah. I'm looking. I probably should have gone for Seagal first, but instead
if we're not pissing people off, then we're not doing our job on this program.
Exactly. Yeah, it's. But Daniels, he had. I guess he was like living in Thailand, and I think they make those Christian movies in Thailand, and so that's why he was Code of Honor. That's
perfect sense.
Yeah. So the movie's Code of Honor. That's what it was. Mm-hmm. And so what it is that Craig Sheffer is like the only guy who. So like Seagal is on a killing spree. He's essentially the Punisher, and Sheffer is the only one who can bring him down. He's like his former. I guess. I think. Seagal is a colonel, so I guess he would have been like a major under Seagal.
Okay,
and he's the only one who can bring him down. And there's a twist in there.
Seagal brings me down a lot, but go on.
Yeah, exactly. It's a Michael Winnick one, so it's not a Keone Waxman. I think it might have been after Keone Waxman's run with Seagal. It's 2016, yeah, so it's after that period. There's not a lot of Seagal in it, as you can imagine. It's but Sheffer is in it as well. Yeah, James Russo. I forgot he has a small part too.
Yeah, that sounds like a Seagal movie. All right.
Exactly. But yeah, to your point, like yeah, Daniels have been playing some baddies lately. I mean, Genesse, it's like, yeah, I don't know. I really don't know with Genesse because he has the look. Like he seems like, is it possible? Because we talked about Wincott the last time you were on, and he also didn't quite have as big of a career. And I wonder if there's like an anti-Canadian bias against those two in the industry.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, is there
Canadians?
Some things like do they? It seems like they don't really have a Canadian accent, but maybe like. Directors hear them rhyme story and sorry, so it's story. And they hear it too much, and they're like, "No, I'm sorry, I can't cast this guy." But he's got great martial arts. He looks great on screen. No, I'm sorry unless
maybe it's like So it's going to be me against Gary Daniels at the end.
Right.
What did you just say?
Right.
It's me against Gary Daniels. What's the problem? Right. No problem at all. Put that in his permanent file.
Yeah, Florentine's like, I'm never working with that guy again. Yeah.
Florentine probably wouldn't care so much, but
no.
Somebody else may have been like, what?
No. Well, and I also like Furstenberg did a lot of movies with Genesse as well, I think. But I guess that's part of the thing is like because Furstenberg kind of goes out a little bit. He kind of steps away from directing as we get into the 2000s. I wonder if that was another, Furstenberg movie was championing Genesse, and that there was nobody to champion him after that.
Could be.
Yeah. But it is kind of too bad that we, and Daniels is an interesting one, right? Because we we still get movies from him, but
Yeah.
he never quite, again, neither of them ever quite hit the heights that at least their martial arts skills and screen presence would have you thought would have
Right. Even if they were just kind of like Daniel Bernhardt, and I mentioned this in my ballerina review. What a career trajectory for Daniel Bernhardt,
right.
who was like started in this direct-to-video Bloodsport sequel.
Yes.
And now the guy who he took over from is doing the direct-to-video movies, and Daniel Bernhardt is in like theatrically released films.
Right.
And yeah, he's not the star of them, but he's a part of them.
Yeah.
And and sometimes is the choreographer of them, and so like he like did it in reverse almost.
Well, yeah, because he did something that none of the other guys have done, and what he did was he said, you know what, I'm just going to do stunt work, and so like he's in like the second Matrix movie as one of the as a stunt guy fighting Keanu Reeves, and I think that's probably part of it, right? He met Chad Stahelski doing that, he met Keanu Reeves and all of them, and he's like, I'm going to do that kind of thing, I'm going to kind of build my career that way. And so then he got to know all these people, and they were like putting him in their movies as smaller parts, like you said. But it's like you said, like suddenly like he's in the first John Wick, now he's in the Ballerina, and it's like, it's kind of crazy, like how he, I don't think any of the other guys could do that. Like like Olivia Gruner's the other kind of poor man's Van Damme that's out at that time, and Gruner would never say like, oh, I'm going to just be the stunt guy, and but that's what Bernhardt.
And I wonder if like Elaine Moussi is following in the lead of Bernhardt.
Yeah.
And also worrying about the Canadian stereotype. So maybe he's like, I'll deal with that. I'll do more stunt coordinating and do more behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah.
And then, if I get a little role here and there, and every once in a while I could do my own movie, good for me. Yeah. But otherwise, I keep working.
Or because he's somebody else, right? Like you see, because even though the second Kickboxer movie was too much for me, that the reboots, it was like so long, like the end fight was so long and everything. I couldn't complain about Moussy's performance in it.
Yeah, he's great. I enjoyed both of those movies. Yeah, I would say the first one was better. I liked him in, I think was it King of Killers?
Yes, he was good in that.
That was really good. That was like okay, he's been putting some work in somewhere.
Yes, yeah.
Because that jujitsu one was just weird.
Right. Yes.
That one felt like this is his Cyborg. Like he had some good, he had two good, like okay, the first Kickboxer was, and the second one wasn't horrible.
Right.
But it's like okay, he's proved himself. No, it's like it was like Van Damme. He had Bloodsport, he had Kickboxer. Then he's like, what the hell is this Cyborg movie? And that's a movie I've grown to love more over the years. I don't think I'll have the same feeling for it. I don't think I'll ever rewatch Jiu-Jitsu again, to be honest with you. But
yes. Yeah, I've got to review it at some point just because it just it's one of those things with these movies. It's like I remember people would tell me when I first started the site, they'd be like, you like someone like a Daniels, well, you don't want to watch this one or that one. It's like, no, I have to watch them all. Like they all have to get reviewed at some point. So right. So I'm gonna have to do Jiu-Jitsu at some point, no matter what. But I think I've got it actually on my watch list. I've got it coming up soon. So
I was excited. I mean, because again, I'm like I'm always like, we need more action heroes. We can't keep bringing the old guys back.
Right. Yeah,
they're not going to be able to go forever. And obviously we have to do more tricks and more things, and the limited use of them. And I mean, I'm glad they're still working. I'm glad they're still a part of it. But I mean, that was so perfect. It was like Van Damme passing the torch.
Yes.
Right in the freaking movie to Mousy. And I'm like, oh yeah, come on, Moose, you're my guy now. You come on, we could do this. I feel like it's 1988 again. Let's do this. And then he comes up with this jujitsu, and they still talk about that third Kickboxer, that Armageddon. That thing. Yeah. Where the hell's that at?
Right, we haven't seen that. I know Atkins is supposed to be in that one too. So I mean,
right?
Come on, because we think of Atkins as being like the next generation. He was born in '76. It's
he's an old timer now,
right? Because it is one of those things. I remember with Charles Bronson when he was doing like the Family of Cops series.
Oh yeah,
and he was like pushing 80 at that point. I mean, he was was up there, and I was like, I think he was like in his 70s, his early 70s, and I thought, well, okay, that's got to be like the cutoff, right? Bronson, family of cops. You can't really be older than that. But no, like all of these guys now, they've pushed past Death Wish 5. They're all older than Bronson was in Death Wish 5, and they're still going. It's like the streamers they're like, no, we can't sell Musi, and it's like, you could sell Musi. Yes, maybe not everybody who's going through thumbnails on Tubi will see Musi on the cover and be like, I'd rather watch that than this Seagal DTV thing from 2012. But enough of us would watch it. I think they need to do a better job with that, I think.
Yeah, I mean, people are willing to take a chance on. I mean, so many of these Netflix movies have people. I've never heard of some of these people, and I just watch them. But it's like, all right, some of them are good, some of them are not so good. But I mean, and a lot of these are like from different. So I'm like, how would I know? I don't freaking follow Mexican movies, like, so show me, and maybe I'll enjoy it. And there's Counterattack, I believe it was. That was a great movie. That was like what G.I. Joe movie should be.
Yeah. And, we watched one, Aftermath, with Dylan Sprouse. I mean, it's not horrible.
No.
It's pretty good. And, it's like, and again, I mean, how good do I need it to be? An hour and a half. I want to watch, it's like Cold Harvest here, which, I mean, Cold Harvest has some really great moments in it overall, but it's like, how hard is it to just make Cold Harvest?
Right.
It's like, I mean,
it's like, it's when you, especially with a Netflix thing, it's like, okay, I've already paid for this Netflix.
Right.
So just give me the most bang for my buck. So
right.
If I watch 4 movies, all right, and I watch my Monday Night Raw every week, hey, I've made it's worth my whatever, $18 or whatever the hell it is.
Yeah.
It's worth it for me.
Yeah, we went down to the commercial version. So
I did too. I did too. I'm like, what the hell? Like Raw already has commercials, no matter.
Oh, okay. So
like the live stuff has to have commercial. Well, it doesn't have to, but that's the whole point, though. That's why they starting to buy this shit, because they're like, well, we want to get on the commercial bit. So I did the same thing. I'm like, okay. I'm just getting the damn commercials.
The one thing I discovered, because when I get my screenshots, Netflix was one of the good ones where you could actually freeze and then it would remove the slider and everything. But when you do commercials and you pause, they do a commercial.
Bastards.
Yeah. So I'm trying to. The other thing too, I've got a new computer now, and apparently, like, I can't just get screenshots of streamers like I could. So I'm using an old computer to get my streamer screenshots, because you got to get your, I don't know, I feel like I don't want a wall of text, like when I first started my site, when I first started doing reviews, my friend was like, well, you got to have some pictures, Matt. I was like, you're right, I do, I got to get some pictures. So at first it was like hot linking everybody else's pictures, because I didn't really realize that was a bad thing to do, and so then I figured out how to take my own screenshots so I could do that instead. I remember somebody commented like, hey, those pictures look familiar. I was like, oh yeah, those are your pictures, aren't they?
I try to get my own as often as I can, but or like official, like stills from the
the screener, right? If they give you the screener, they'll say, hey, these are the pictures we want to use, and that's fine too, because obviously I don't want to have screenshots that say property of so and so, or whatever. That's like the watermark.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, actually, this might be a good segue here. Actually, before we segue though into plugs, anything else on Cold Harvest that we didn't touch on?
Cold Harvest is it's a good, solid new Image film. I wouldn't say it's Genese's best. Again, I believe that it would be Project Shadow Chaser 2, but it's up there. Again, is probably his best as a villain. Maybe his only new Image as a villain. But so that's faint praise, but no, he's very good as a villain here. It just definitely proves he could play both sides of the fence. Gary Daniels always, he's just one of those like kind of steady Eddie kind of guys. He doesn't really ever. I don't know if he's ever really gone like blown up. Like, oh my God, that was the role that. It's like he's always, what you're going to get from Gary Daniels, and he delivers it. And he did have the challenge of a dual role, and one of the characters had to wear glasses. Right. So this was maybe a little bit of a out of his comfort zone, but no, I enjoy Gary Daniels' work, and this is one worth watching. Obviously, I bought it, so it had to be good.
Right. Yeah.
I'm like, I'm going to watch this again. I will buy it.
Yeah, that's one thing I'd say. Maybe the Fossum version, you can watch it. It's good. I mean, it's not cut. It's just the way Fossum does commercials. I think, hopefully Tubi will get this one back soon, because Tubi seems to do a better job of commercials. I don't know why.
Yeah.
They seem to, and I have to assume it's the same. I can't imagine there's somebody who's placing commercials. I think it's the same thing, but for whatever reason, they seem to place them better. I don't know.
If there is a commercial placer
Right?
for Tubi, I may have to check the old career builder or something, because I feel like I could do a pretty damn good job of that.
Yeah. No, it's got to be. It's got. I mean, they have to have more than one, right? They have to have a lot of them. If they.
Oh yeah, you got to have a lot. So just give me like, it's that seems definitely like a work from home type thing.
Oh yeah.
Like you watch it and you timestamp it. Like, okay, put how many breaks do we need in this movie? Okay, I got you. And then they need to at least be okay. I got you. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the 15-minute mark looks like it's good, but actually no, the 16-minute mark is a little bit better. Let's put the commercial there. Yeah, because it does. I don't know why, but Tubi seems to be better at it than the other ones. I don't know why.
They're the recognized leader in the free ad streaming
right, exactly.
gimmicks. Fast TV. They're the kings of fast TV as far as I know. Pluto was really first.
Yeah.
May not be. Pluto was in there. But I think Tubi is like, they have like Tubi originals.
Yes.
I mean, that's when you know something's gone up a notch.
Yeah.
They got Tubi freaking originals.
Yes. Yeah. No, it's amazing. Yeah. Pluto is another one that's bad with commercials. Like I tried watching Punisher Warzone on there, and it was just it
punished you.
They punished me with commercials. Yeah. It was like Ray Stevens punching me in the face, like that kid in the kitchen scene there. The poor kid who gets when he gets punches him in the face. I got a Ray Stevens punch in the face there. Yeah, for sure. Exactly. All right. Well, Chris, as we're wrapping up here, anything that you'd like to plug?
Well, I would always like to plug bulletproofaction.com. I spend way too much time and effort on that. Not to say, hey, check out my site if you so. And you know what? We're going to have Wild West Week coming up.
I saw that.
Well, we haven't had a theme week all year. I said, we're going to have one now, and it's going to be Wild West Week. We got the brand new Black Creek. Yeah. Talk about old school action heroes. That thing's full of them.
Yeah, so I think by the time this episode airs, Wild West Week will have happened, so people should go back and look for, especially the Black Creek one, because Black Creek, that Cynthia Rothrock, she's put a lot of work into this movie, and so it's exciting to have this come out. So I'm excited to see what you guys' take is. I haven't seen it yet. I don't know.
I haven't either. I don't think anyone has at this point, but as we record, the magic of recording. So we got that Django the Bastard.
Oh yes.
Why was I assigned that one, I wonder? I'll tell you why. Because my mission in this world before I die is that when someone hears the word bastard, they think of me. Yeah. And you can check out the Count the Bastards list that I have going on. Now, you've got to have double-digit bastards in your movie to make my list, and I've got about 19 of them up there. And by the time this here, who knows, I might have 20, 21. I may have more. So always check that out. And, of course, the podcast as well. And we did Breakheart Pass for Wild West Week, Charles Bronson. So
nice.
One of my favorite Bronson. That one kind of snuck up on me. I wasn't sure what to expect when I first watched it, and it's one I do revisit from time to time, and it was good to revisit for the podcast.
Yeah, the Bronson Westerns, they're that's kind of how he got his start, kind of, he was, right. Or when he kind of blew up, I should say. That's when he'd started before that. And then, of course, Death Wish comes out at a time when people were worried about crime, and he just kind of embodied, right, that, so, but those Westerns, I think that's they're really fun. He does a really great job with that. I don't know what's going to happen with. I think Bronzy did do one Western, didn't he, Robert Bronzy? Yeah, I
think he may have done two already. Right. Yeah. And I think Chad covered both of those. Have I covered a Bronzy movie? I don't think they allow me to cover Bronzy movies. I have watched a few. I've watched Death Kiss.
Yeah,
and I watched The Gardener.
Yeah, yeah. Which is just amazing. I haven't watched. Gary Daniels is in The Gardener, and he's doing his best to make that as good a movie as he can. But I can't imagine what it was like for him to do a fight scene with Bronzy.
He did. He did a lot of heavy lifting in that movie.
He did. Yes. Yeah. It's the concept of that whole thing is just, it's just, and it's one of those things that, like, when you watch an actual Bronson movie, Like I think their hope is that nobody actually watches a Bronson movie before they watch a Bronzy movie
No.
because you just like what, So somebody made the joke. I think it was Ty was saying that somebody should do like a good Bronzy impression or good Bronson impression and be dubbed over.
Yeah, that might help.
Yeah, but yeah, it's
You know who does a good one is Tim Thomerson.
Oh, does he? Oh, that would be awesome.
Yeah, check it out on YouTube. There's a clip of him at a comedy club doing a Charles Bronson impersonation.
Oh, that would be. See, Charles Band, because I think he works with Thomerson a lot. He could do like
With the Trancers, yeah, he did.
Yeah, they could do Bronzy movies where he's doing Bronzy's voice.
Yeah, Bronzy. I haven't watched 12 to Midnight yet.
That's what we did. So we did that one. Ty and I did.
I know. Yeah. I saw you did. I'm like, oh yeah, I gotta catch that one. That'd probably be the next one on my.
Yeah.
I'm bold enough. That one he did too. That prison one. That one looked interesting.
Right. Yes.
I think they filmed that here in Ohio at the prison.
They might have because the 12 to Midnight was north of here. It was in Lehigh Valley in Pennsylvania.
Yeah. So there you go.
Yeah, good old Bronzy. Well, no, those are exciting, especially Wild West Week. I can't, So again, for people listening at this point, Wild West Week will have happened. So go back to Bulletproof. The link is in the
you could see the whole. You don't have to wait. You could just binge the whole week's worth of content. You'll love it.
Yes, yeah,
or maybe not. I'm hoping. Will the Django it got bastard in the title?
Yeah,
will it have double-digit bastards in the movie?
My memory is it was a good one. That was a fun one.
Okay.
Yes, it's been a long time since
I've
I've seen it.
But I've never seen it. I've seen the original Django. That's the only one I've seen. So I'm looking forward to this one.
Yeah, I think Netflix, I was able to get them both, I think, or something. I can't remember, but I watched them both, Django and Django the Bastard, like back to back. And so if I remember, I did enjoy it, but I'll have to. I don't remember if I reviewed it.
I don't know if that's. I know some of the things you enjoy, so I don't know if that's as ringing of an endorsement as it. Like I'd be like, oh wow, Matt said it was real good, but you sit here and you watch freaking Bronzy movies.
Yes,
voluntarily.
Well,
and Christian movies made in Thailand. What the hell are you doing?
Yeah, well, I've only done the two Bronzy so far, but yeah, the Christian movies made in Thailand. I had this idea that I was going to do all of those, for Daniels. And it was like the thing was only that one was available, the Mark. The other two weren't available yet. Now they're all on Tubi, and it's like,
oh yeah, they are.
Yeah, it's like, Matt, you can do them all. Yeah, you got to do them. You got, Gary's sitting at 60 movies on your site. You gotta get those Christian movies in. And it's like, I know, I do, but yeah.
I love that you have very good records of everything you're doing. As I said earlier about the thing. Mine is so haphazard. I'm like, oh, I really should have been keeping better track of all of this.
Well, so what happens is that like I tag like Millennium Films, I stopped tagging, and because it was just like, it was too like, oh, is it a new image? Millennium, I got to like 60 movies and I stopped doing. I think actually though when I did 211, I did tag that one as Millennium, but like Cole S. McKay, I was like, I should tag him. I should see, how many. And it turned out I did like 56 of his movies. And it was like, wow. Now he's at 58. And it's like, he's going to be at 60 before I even get him in the Hall of Fame and all that stuff. And it's just like, so some of those ones, it's like that, where it's like, I guess maybe I'll tag that person. Now, Art Camacho is another one. It's like, when I decided to tag him, he had like 40 something. And it was like, and I don't even know if I've done all of them for either of those guys, because it's just like, you start scrolling IMDb and you're like, I think I reviewed that one. I don't remember, and it's like suddenly next thing I know, like it's like, when you watch a movie and somebody's nervous about a test and suddenly all the questions start swirling around on the page. Yes. That's kind of what happens with IMDb with me when I'm trying to tag some of these guys.
Yeah. And for me, sometimes I'm like, well, oh wait, somebody else on the site did it. So I'm like, oh, right. It's a myth. Again, I was looking for some, like, how much Western content have we had? And I saw that Chad had covered 2 Bronzy Westerns. I'm like, he's such a brave. No wonder he stopped writing on the regular.
That's the one thing that does happen. I've had to learn that for myself. Like I recently did Savage Salvation because I wanted for Cole S. McKay to get in the 50 club because he's the stunt coordinator on it. And I started watching it and I was like, whew, this is a rough one. I was like, I need like, 5 p.m. movies or something like that to kind of cleanse the palate on that one. Yeah. Like, well, Chris, it's a good time, I guess, Eddie, to wrap this up. Thank you for coming on. This was another fun episode.
Oh, thank you for having me. Always a pleasure to come on your professional podcast.
Yes, exactly. With me, we were recording on our
We got a
free,
producer lady.
right.
Hey, producer lady. I didn't hear any. I guess everything was good on your end because I didn't hear. After the beginning, I never heard from you.
Right after the recording was on, she didn't. Yeah, she was in my ear the whole time, telling me, "Don't say that, Matt."
Oh,
No,
yeah.
no.
Okay. Good.
You,
Yeah.
you wrap it up, Matt. Yeah, no, but otherwise, yeah, that
We're going to commercial in 5, 4,
exactly,
3, 2.
exactly. Yeah. Well, again, thank you for coming on, and thank you everyone for listening. And we'll be back soon. Bye, everyone.